We have quorum to transact business. Clerk.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages.
Do you have any message? No. Next order. Okay. These are petitions.
Number 4, petitions.
Honorable members, I have 2 petitions to convey to the House. The first petition is regarding enactment of legislation to criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution accords any person the right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Dr. Annette Mbogo, the Executive Director of Kituo cha Sheria Legal Advice Center, calling for enactment of legislation to criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. The petitioner claims that the organization has worked closely with the victims of cases of extrajudicial killings and disappearances in the country since 2007 and documented a total of 1,201 killings and 272 enforced disappearances, with most of the incidences having occurred in the hands of the police and other security agencies. The petitioner further claims that in 2021, Kenya reported approximately 43 cases of disappearances of persons who are last seen in police custody or who were abducted by persons believed to be police officers. Honorable members, the petition highlights the northern and coast regions as being hotspots for such incidences to counter terrorism operations, and cites other instances including the retrieving of at least 20 bodies from River Yala. The petitioner is concerned that there is no effective legal remedy available through law to hold suspects accountable for forcibly disappearing victims whose whereabouts remain unknown or denied. Efforts to have the matter addressed through filing of a constitutional petition seeking that the Attorney General does request the President to form a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the rampant cases of enforced disappearances have not been fruitful. The petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly enacts laws that will expressly criminalize and prescribe penalties for the crime of enforced disappearance. Honorable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further that the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petition in accordance with the Standing Order 2272. I thank you. Honorable members at the door, at the back, can take their seats. Take the nearest seat. Take the nearest seats, members. The second petition, honorable members, is regarding the state of food security in the country. Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution gives right to any person to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Shadrach Agaki of identification card number 27414999, a citizen with interest in the worrying state of food security in the country. The petitioner states that food insecurity continues to affect the lives of many Kenyans contrary to the aspirations espoused in Article 43(1)(c) of the Constitution that obligates the state to ensure that every citizen is free from hunger and have adequate food of acceptable quantity and quality. Honorable members, the petitioner is concerned that various policies, initiatives, and programs that have been implemented in an attempt to address food insecurity have been unsuccessful. He alludes to the fact that no significant efforts have been made to realize optimum yield in Kenya's different ecological zones. The petitioner therefore prays that the National Assembly amends the Food Security Act with the aim of achieving a clear legal framework and coordination mechanism between the national and county governments in addressing food and nutritional insecurity in the country. Honorable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of this House, and further the matters raised in this petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional or legal body, I hereby commit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I thank you. Honorable members, standing orders give us an opportunity to comment on such petitions for at least 30 minutes. You've heard the two petitions, one on food security, one on forced disappearances. I'll give you an opportunity to make your comments. The screen is full as usual. I don't know if it's about this petition or about other businesses coming. Those who want to comment, I suggest you go to interventions, which is already full as well. I will start with James Wandai, Ugunja. It is good to mention which petition you are particularly commenting on, food security or disappearances.
Let me comment on the petition on enforced disappearances, because that's a very, very, very serious issue that goes to the heart of our Bill of Rights as a country. Mr. Speaker, that is a timely petition in my view. And I don't even think the manner in which it is coached will give us the adequate attention that it requires. Because in my view, this is a matter that requires the establishment of a commission of inquiry. Even as we address future cases of enforced disappearances, we must go to the root of this matter by investigating past incidences, past cases of enforced disappearances. I have seen the petitioner is making reference to police or security agents, be that as it may. But I think this goes beyond the police and security agents. There could be people, of course, who are using these agents or agencies to effect these enforced disappearances. And therefore, it's a very timely issue, and that needs to be addressed with the utmost seriousness that it surely deserves. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai. Didimas Barasa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I also want to comment on this petition on forced disappearances, and just being cautious, Honorable Speaker, that I hope it excludes, you know, I come from a region where we still have traditional marriages where a girl can disappear for 2 weeks, then come back after maybe 3 weeks. I hope this excludes criminalizing this type of behavior. Secondly, I'm happy that the Member of Parliament for Unguja is now supporting that actually forced disappearance should be criminalized. You know, when Kenyans were disappearing in the previous regime, we were saying is wrong, and I'm happy that his opposition now adds impetus to what all of us will want to ensure that nobody should disappear for whatever reasons, and any disappearance must be meted with the full force of law, and that must be, I hope that this petition will be expedited and the recommendations implemented. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Gitonga Murugara.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, enforced disappearance is an act of extrajudicial killing. And this is rampant in the country, as witnessed by bodies being retrieved from Yala River. A regime that was there at independence and after independence used to tell people, you cross the path of the government and you find yourself in Ngong Forest. That appears to have continued up to today. As we speak, and from Daraka in the year 2017, a young man known as Mwenda had complained to the International Justice Mission, and him and his lawyer and the driver were actually killed. Thank heavens that those killers were recently sentenced to death. It actually behoves on us to move the speed, pass laws that criminalize any forced disappearance so that we can value the right to life in the country. As regards the food security, it's vitally important that we actually become self-sustaining in food. It's vitally important that we stop crying, we stop seeing our people dying because of lack of food. This is a basic right. We just need to get it right, and we would be away from famines, from drought, and from food insecurity, which is rampant at the present moment in time. Let us amend the Act, make food security one of the matters that we must bring to book, so that at the end of the day, the country has enough food for everyone. Quality food and quantity food. Thank you very much.
Robert Mbui, Kadiani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity. I also want to add my voice to the issue regarding the state of food security in the country. And I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, if the situation is actually not addressed now, and these rains do not do as well as the meteorological department is proposing, then we may start losing lives as a result of food insecurity. You remember recently, Mr. Speaker, there was a school in somewhere, I think in Kajiado, where the bell for lunch rang, and then instead of the children queuing, the parents actually rushed into the school to queue for food. So there's a major problem. And I want to just urge that the current regime, Kenya Kwanza, needs to become responsive to the needs of the people. I know that they have talked about how not to subsidize food, but you know, sometimes extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. So I want to say that this issue of food security needs to be addressed. The government needs to put their best foot forward, and we must nip this in the bud. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Robert. Badi Jomvu.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Pia mimi Mheshimiwa Spika naungana na wenzangu ili kuweza kuchangia juu ya hizi petition mbili. Mheshimiwa Spika, mwanzo ni katika ile hali ya kuweza kujikimu, Mheshimiwa Spika, katika hali ya chakula. Na leo Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wote katika nchi hii ya Kenya wanalia juu ya ongezeko la bei ya chakula. Lakini nataka kusema ni lazima Mheshimiwa Spika kuwe na uongozi mzuri.
Order. Order, honorable members at the back who are holding a kamkunji in the chamber. Order.
Koyo.
Order, honorable members. If you want to have a conversation, there are sufficient corridors out there. Go on, honorable member. Endelea, Mheshimiwa.
Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nikiangalia hali hii lazima kuwe na uongozi mzuri. Na Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia katika hii mambo ya bei ya chakula, hali ni mbaya sana katika nchi kwa wakati huu. Lakini pia tukiangalia katika nchi hii ya Kenya, Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna mahali ambako kulikuwa kunaitwa Galana Kulalu, ambako watu wa Israeli walikuja pale ili kuweza kutaka kusaidiana na nchi hii katika mambo ya food production ama katika kukuza chakula. Lakini tukiangalia watu wale, Mheshimiwa Spika, walifanyiwa finyange nyingi sana mpaka mwisho wakaondoka hapa nchini. Mheshimiwa, niko na imani wako local investors ama wako wale ambao wameweza kujitolea wafanyabiashara ambao watataka kufanya kazi hiyo ya ukuzaji wa chakula pale Galana Kulalu. Kubwa ambalo mimi naliomba ni kuona kwa serikali iweze kuunga mkono ili kazi ile waweze kuifanya na matatizo haya yaweze pia kutuondokea. Mheshimiwa Spika, katika petition ya pili tukiangalia hasa kule Mombasa tunakotoka, watoto wengi sana walikuwa wanapotea kwa kisababu cha kuwa ati ni Al-Shabaab. Hakuna sababu yoyote ambayo ilikuwa inaonyesha vijana hao kwa nini wanatuhumiwa. Lakini serikali waona kijana ameshikwa akiangaliwa mara 2-3 hapatikani. Kwa hivyo ni lazima tuone kwa serikali ilinde watu wake na kuwa na ubinadamu katika kuona kuwa wanawashughulikia. Ikiwa kuna jambo lolote, mtu asipotezwe, aweze kupatikana, ushahidi upatikane, aweze kuchukuliwa hatua. Kwa hivyo kwa hayo Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwa kunipatia nafasi hii na mimi pia kuchangia katika petition hizi mbili. Asante.
Robert Bukose Endebes.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, first I want to congratulate you on your award of your honorary PhD by Masinde Muliro University. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I want to make a comment on the extrajudicial killings, that when the Committee on Petitions will be looking at amending the law, they should not just look at the extrajudicial killings in terms of police people disappearance, but they should also look at it in terms of, we've seen cases of police, whether Kenya Forest Rangers, whether KWS, killing Kenyans without any proper justification. And I think that is also extrajudicial killings, and it should be covered in all. Because, Honorable Speaker, I've had several cases of KWS askaris killing people in Mount Elgon Lodge who have just gone to look for firewood. So I think this is a very important petition. On issues of food security, Honorable Speaker, as the committee looks at it, we have other potential areas where we can grow our food. It's not just Kulalu scheme, but we have many ADC farms, especially in my constituency, which are lying idle and could be able to be utilized for proper food production. And we can also harness issues of water under gravity to be able to make sure that these lands provide enough food to feed this country. With those few remarks, I support.
Dido Raso Saku.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on judicial, extrajudicial killing and disappearances. This is the strategy of a weak state that is not able to police its citizens adequately. As I'm speaking from the floor of the House, 2 of my constituents were actually abducted almost 1 year ago, and they are nowhere to be seen. Those who are involved are believed to be persons who are associated with security of the state. Honorable Speaker, unless this matter is criminalized, Kenya's lives will continue to be wasted with impunity. On the issue of food security, I think for those of us who are from famine-stricken areas, this is what we see today, that Kenya needs to be food secure so that lives are not lost. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
David Posing, Pokoti South.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to make comments on the petitions. And let me start with the petition, Honorable Speaker, of forced disappearance. Speaker, this is a fundamental petition, very important petition. And I would wish that the petitioner or the committee, Honorable Speaker, may invite some members, honorable members here, so that they can also benefit from their experience, Honorable Speaker. And one of my comments is that they should not look at the law only, Speaker. They should also look at a commission of inquiry. We need a commission of inquiry, Speaker, on these extrajudicial activities, Speaker. And I come from a community which, Honorable Speaker, lives in fear of extrajudicial killing, Honorable Speaker, and forced disappearance. And that's the Pokot people. And of course, Speaker, you heard that I was on news for bad reasons or good reasons, maybe 2 weeks ago that I was picked, Honorable Speaker, from my office. And what did I do, Speaker? Because of that fear of extrajudicial killing, some boys were arrested from my community. And we were fearing that they were actually going to be hanged or killed or disappear, Honorable Speaker, as it has been history in my community, Honorable Speaker, of the Pokot people. So what I did, I had to escort them. I had to go to court, sat there, and made sure, the Speaker, that when they were released from court, that at least they went home, Honorable Speaker, safely. And whatever means they went home, Honorable Speaker, is something that is good for me to say, I better save our people, Honorable Speaker. And there was no sin I committed, because our community, Honorable Speaker, live in fear of extrajudicial killing every day. I want to urge this committee, Honorable Speaker, to be very careful and to be sensitive and to call some of us so that we can share with them our experience, Honorable Speaker. But start, first of all, with a commission of inquiry, Honorable Speaker. I support it.
Wangari Mother Gilgil.
Asante Bwana Spika, hata mimi natoa maoni kulingana na dua hili lililowasilishwa kwenye bunge hili na mkurugenzi kutoka kituo cha sheria kuhusu kutoweka kwa lazima kwa binadamu. Na Bwana Spika, haya maneno ni mambo ya kikatiba, ni mambo ya haki za binadamu, na nafikiri jamii nyingi zimeumia sana. Na ukiangalia kwa jinsia, Bwana Spika, wale ambao mara nyingi wanatoweka ni wanaume. Unapata watoto kwamba wanabaki mayatima, kunabaki wajane, wanawake wanabaki wajane, Bwana Spika. Na kamati hii tunaomba kwamba iangalie, unajua kuna mambo ambayo unaweza poteza binadamu, Bwana Spika, lakini afadhali hata upate mwili. Kumefika mahali mpaka familia zinaomba zipate tu mili wazike waweze kusahau. Kwa hivyo Bwana Spika, nikiangalia kama juzi mwaka wa 2021 kuna wakili mmoja kutoka kijiji kinaitwa Miti Mingi kule Gilgil alitoweka, na hata waleo hatujui yako wapi, Bwana Spika. Watoto wake wanahangaika, wazazi wanahangaika. Kwa hivyo tutatumaini kwamba wataleta haya mambo na wataleta ripoti hiyo ya mambo haya kwenye bunge hili, ndio tuweze kuhakikisha kwamba mambo ya kutoweka huku kutakuwa kukiweza kukua jinai na ichukuliwe hatua kama inavyofaa. Asante Bwana Spika.
Rueda Obo, Lamu East.
Asante Bwana Spika, kunipatia nafasi nami kuchangia katika ombi lilotumwa kuhusu watu kupotea kiholela. Bwana Spika, sisi Lamu County tumekuwa waathiriwa sana. Listi ni ndefu tukitoa wale watu wetu walopotea na hatuwajui wako wapi mpaka sasa. Bwana Spika, listi hiyo nikitoa nafikiri itakuwa hata sipati la kuzungumza, itakuwa ni kutaja hayo majina peke yake. Bwana Spika, sisi kwetu tulikuwa tukifikiria sana ni issue za Al-Shabaab na vile tuko mpakani. Lakini Bwana Spika, la kusikitisha zaidi na la kuchanganya watu zaidi huko Lamu, kwa karibu tuliambiwa mauaji ya Lamu County hauhusiani na Al-Shabaab na husiana na mashamba. Sasa watu wangu wametatizika zaidi, hawajui wanaua nani. Kwa nini watu wetu wakimbie, wateswe kwa sababu ya Al-Shabaab, na kumbe kuna kiongozi ambaye ajua wanaua watu ni nani? Kwa hivyo mimi nimefurahi ombi hili kuja. Hata mimi itabidi niifanye kama ni statement au kama ni petition. Serikali ituambie kwamba ni nani wanaua watu Lamu, manake imetatiza watu. Siku nyingi imekuwa tukifikiria ni Al-Shabaab ndo wanaua watu. Kumbe si Al-Shabaab, ni mambo ya ardhi. Na alosema kiongozi inamaanisha anawajua wanaua watu Lamu County. Na itakuwa vizuri kwa sababu imetu affect sana, imetutatiza sisi. Kule tunategemea utalii. Watalii wamekuwa hawaji, askari wengi, hizi convoy nyingi za ukienda kama mtalii ukiona majeshi wengi unashangaa unaenda pahali gani, wanaogopa narudi njiani. Na pesa nyingi ya serikali imekuwa ikitumika kwa linda boni tukijua ni Al-Shabaab, na watu wanapotea ovyo ovyo. Kwa hivyo sasa hii tumejua, tunataka serikali jitolee waziwazi, tujue wanaua watu mkina nani na uchumi wetu uweze kuendelea Lamu County. Asante Bwana Spika.
Rindikiri Mugambi Buri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to comment on this issue of extrajudicial killing and unexplained disappearance of Kenyan citizens. Mr. Speaker, in the history of government, the government between 2017 and 2022, we witnessed a lot of disappearance of Kenyan citizens who were never given an opportunity to know exactly what was happening. Mr. Speaker, one of my constituents by the name Mwenda Bijewe disappeared in 2021. And up to today, there hasn't been any official communication from the government. Incidentally, Mr. Speaker, even the office of the DCI then was manned by somebody from my constituency. The attempt by the family to contact the office of the DCI, the office of the government prosecutor, the office of the IG, no family member or internal parties were given opportunity to write a statement, and they were never given a statement explaining the circumstances under which this gentleman disappeared. Mr. Speaker, I think time has come that the security organs in charge of maintaining peace in this country should start valuing the life of Kenyans. We have been told there are so many bodies that have been discovered in Yala River, in Nyanza, others in Mount Kenya, Aberdares, and so many other places. So I join my colleague to say time has come to change the law and demand that the government enforce always, whenever a case has been reported to the government to take measures. On the food security, this is coming handy. I think witnessing what the food security because of drought is happening, I support that we need to amend the Food Security Act so that we start dealing with this case in a more detailed manner, and that which is going to benefit the entire country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Abraham Kirwa Mosop. Give him the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion. Includes 33% of our GDP from agriculture, but as a nation, we've not been able to feed ourselves for reasons unknown. If you look at the amount of food we produce, somebody mentioned Kulalu farm that we had thought it might be of help. We look at areas like Rift Valley, which we consider it as the breadbasket of this country. Is not able to produce enough food to feed the citizens of this country. So something needs to happen. If we need to go back and relook at the seeds that we are using in this country, so that we have to change. If we have to get advanced seeds that is going to allow farmers to produce more crops, then that's what needs to happen. And then we have to look at other ways. on how this country we cannot have existed since independence and we are not able to feed our own people. The drought, of course, has made it worse because we are experiencing the worst drought in years. We've never had this kind of drought in this country. But it is not enough after almost so many years that the country cannot feed itself. We have countries like Israel, which actually is in the desert, but it's able to feed its citizens. But Kenya, we get a lot of rainfall, we have a lot of greenery, but at the same time, we've not been able to feed our people. So it's time to sit down as a nation and actually reconsider our farming methods and ways we can actually, there are people who own trucks and trucks of land, but they are not using it to produce enough food for our country. So we have to sit down and reconsider our farming methods. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of people actually disappearing without knowing where they've gone, I don't believe in aliens, and I don't believe aliens come to this country to take people away. These people disappear because somebody somewhere played a game or killed them or took them away. And it is the responsibility of any government to provide security and protection to its people. So these people stories of people disappearing without knowing where they went has to be investigated. It is the responsibility of our government to make sure that actually every citizen is guaranteed security, and if somebody disappears and nobody knows, it is them to investigate and really find out where and why did somebody disappear. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute.
Omondi Karoli, Suba South.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to talk about these two issues. The first one, let me start with the food security issue before I come to forced disappearance. I think the poverty levels in Kenya today, the food poverty levels in Kenya today are in excess of 50%. And I think less than 60% of our families have 3 square meals a day. Majority, I think, are on 1. But this is not largely because of adverse weather or climate change. I think it is because of the way we have handled our land tenure system. All the large farms that used to be in Kenya some 30, 40 years ago have been subdivided into small lots because of the way we practice agriculture and the way we also live as a people. And I think the government has not been doing enough to try and help consolidation. Food security is a function of mechanized agriculture. It is not a function of subsistence farming. So we can talk about seeds, we can talk about manure, we can talk about fertilizers. But as long as our farm holdings are of such size that cannot afford to be mechanized, there will never be a time when Kenya will be food secure. And I think that is where we should start. Either we aggregate our farming areas and try to create cooperatives that can then mechanize farming the way the white people do it or used to do it, or we stare at permanent food insecurity. Secondly, I think we need to make a deliberate effort. The water flows today in Kenya where you could do irrigation are from Nakuru to the Lake region and western parts of Kenya. I think that is where we should focus on irrigation for purposes of our food security. And I think this issue, coupled with shortage of water, will probably create a lot of conflicts amongst communities in the future. Mr. Speaker, on forced or enforced disappearances, where the state deliberately abducts or imprisons people directly or through third parties in concert with such parties for political reasons, is very common. And I think it is something that we need to tackle very hard, together with the other issue of extrajudicial killings. But tied to that, I think more lives are also being lost on killings where the state is not involved. Like the deaths that come by cattle rustling, farm invasions, and all those kind of things. I think we need to relook at the legal framework, how we deal with these issues. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Owen Bayer.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Dr. Moses Wetangula. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the Director of Kituo Sheria for this petition, because Kituo Sheria has done extensive work on enforced disappearance. But more so, Honorable Speaker, there's a time in East Africa where we only associated disappearance of people to the regime in Uganda when Idi Amin Dada was president. And a lot of bodies were found in Lake Victoria and River Nile. But in the past regime, this country actually saw the same things that used to happen in Uganda during the regime of Idi Amin Dada. Honorable Speaker, very many young people in Mombasa, and especially at the coast, just a suspicion that they were looking different, would have them either disappear to the Savo forest or to the rivers. It's important as a country we come to know the truth. Who was killing these people? Who was behind this? I know when the current the president came into power, he took a purge at the DCI. But I also want to say that it is not enough to just take a purge on some officials at the DCI. We want to go to the bottom of it and know who killed those many people whose bodies were found at River Yala. Who are these people? Why were they being killed? Why is it that the previous government tolerated these killings? These are important things. And I think Kituo Sheria has documented these cases. They have the information, and I would like the Committee on Petitions to delve into the depth of it so that Kenyans can know where their loved ones went, why they went where they went, and who was behind that. Honorable Speaker, this is important for this country to move forward so that we are able to know what happened. If we must forgive, we forgive and move forward, but people must know where they went. There are very many cases in my constituency where young people disappeared. Young people from Malindi constituency, or Malindi, the neighboring town, disappeared just because they had a light skin, they had different hair, and they wore a turban. Just that, or they wore a kofia. And that would force a young person to just disappear. Honorable Speaker, it's very important that we go to the depth of it, and I want to thank Dr. Annette Mbogo for this petition. Secondly, food security is a problem right now. With climate change and all that, I think the second petition is important for this country. We need to look at our framework on food production, food security, so that we can move forward. This country does not only suffer from high prices, but also suffers from the drought that we have, the loss of animals, the loss of crop, all these are important things. So, Mr. Speaker, these two petitions, I want to urge the Committee on Petitions to look at them closely and give this House a report that we're able to sit down and discuss and move forward as a country. I thank you.
Deco Dalo, Garissa Town. Give him the mic. There you are.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support the petition, especially on the one of extrajudicial killing and forced disappearances. I'm a victim of these heinous crimes, which we suspect the security agencies are involved. Mr. Speaker, from the constituency I come from, we have so many formations and units of different agencies or security agencies whom we don't know who is responsible for them, in that when somebody disappears, we do not know who exactly, and when we ask those in leadership of the security agencies in the region, they always point fingers in different units and formations. We support this, or rather I support this petition, and during the last election campaigns, the president, as the leader of the Kenya Kwanza, had promised us, as people of the region, that this issue will be addressed effectively in the next government, which is now in place. We want the government to take responsibility for this. We have mothers who have lost their sons. We have women who have lost their husbands. We have children who have lost their fathers and the only breadwinners. So I support this petition, and it's timely, and we need this to be taken seriously by the petition committee. Thank you.
Member for Samburu East, Jackson.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaker, I want to comment on these forced disappearances. And I think, Honorable Speaker, right now Kenyans are living in a lot of fear because of these forced disappearances. And Speaker, when the Kenya Kwanza government came in power, the president assured the Kenyan that these forced disappearances will not be there. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, it is rampant now. There are so many people disappearing, and nobody knows where they are. And I think this is the high time, Mr. Speaker, that we should deal with this issue of people disappearing. About the food security, Honorable Speaker, I think as a country, we need to deal in this issue of food secure, because right now there is nowhere maybe we can get enough food. And I think we have the power and the ability to make Kenya food secure. We only need to do what is required. Otherwise, I support the petition. Thank you.
Tim Wanyonyi.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to make comments on the forced disappearance. One, Mr. Speaker, forced disappearance is not just an isolated act. It is a well-designed and orchestrated by people who are paid by some influential people, Mr. Speaker, to cause the disappearance of certain people. Sometimes it has happened even in the Mr. Speaker, this is an act, it borders on the act of terrorism, and many people who have disappeared, and we have seen many bodies found in River Yala. And this, Mr. Speaker, the police have never done an investigation and concluded any of these acts. So we need to criminalize this thing and put it in legislation so that the lives of Kenyans are protected. And one of the primary role of government is to protect the life of Kenyans. And this is an area that we need to address. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of food security, Mr. Speaker, recently I listened to the speech by the President of Zimbabwe, and he highlighted how Zimbabwe has managed to secure itself food-wise, and the plans they came up with. And these same plans, we have them here, Mr. Speaker. If we put them in use and implement all those, Mr. Speaker, the legislation we have done, we can have food security in this country. And the government must be serious about it because Kenyans are suffering. We are using a lot of our foreign exchange to import food when Kenya is capable of producing enough food to feed its people. So, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very deliberate effort that most Kenyans must. And the government must also buy food from farmers. The farmers who are producing food, and some of them rotting in the farms. And then we find that the same government is importing food when the farmers are stuck with the food in the farms. So if we do this, then we will be able to feed our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Aburi, what is the problem? Can you give Mpuri?
My point of order, Mr. Speaker, there's a lot of Kamkunji inside here, so we can't hear what he is saying.
The Honorable Murugara and your team, you are causing unnecessary mayhem in the House. Let's observe some order. The member who is standing talking to member for Kamkunji, take your seat. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I rise to support this petition by Madam Annette Mbogo who the deputy leader of majority tells me is from Kilifi County, and a very good scholar and lawyer. Honorable Speaker, in support of this petition, she avers, Honorable Speaker, that she has, or her organization has made efforts to have this matter addressed through the filing of a constitutional petition asking the Attorney General of the Republic of Kenya to request His Excellency the President to form a judicial commission of inquiry to look into the rampant cases of enforced disappearances, and the same has not been fruitful. Honorable Speaker, I do not know whether the chair of this committee is in the House, but probably this should be amongst the recommendations that the committee should come up with, that we do institute a commission of inquiry to get to the root cause of why people are forced to disappear. This thing we are calling forced disappearances, Mr. Speaker. And I don't know what is a forced disappearance, because what we are calling forced disappearances, Honorable Speaker, are outright killings, because there is no way you can disappear into thin air and never be found. Honorable Speaker, I also have cases in my constituency. A son to Mzee Mishuki, who is my very good friend, who just disappeared into thin air. And as the petitioner avers in this petition, Honorable Speaker, in most of these cases, these are people who are allegedly arrested by people who claim to be policemen. And let us be fair, Honorable Speaker, and honest to ourselves. It is not just people who claim to be policemen. It has been actually policemen who have been abducting people in this country and killing them in broad daylight. Honorable Speaker, it is sad that when His Excellency the President disbanded what was called the SSU, I don't know special what, that unit, which was a murderous unit, Honorable Speaker, under the office of the DCI. There are many people who sought to use that as an opportunity to make politics out of it. And I was shocked, Honorable Speaker, that the people who are saying, no, now you are targeting the people who served in the former regime. You are targeting DCI Kinoti. What is targeting DCI Kinoti and those who are in office when it was official government policy to force disappearances of Kenyans and kill Kenyans and dump their bodies in River Yala, in River Tana? You remember, Honorable Speaker, I think close to 30 bodies were fished out of River Yala. Another close to 20 bodies were fished out of River Tana, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we cannot say that anybody is being targeted. And I know because some of them today have been invited to the DCI on small matters. When the time comes, I want to ask DCI Amin not to fear anybody. Those who sanctioned and commissioned the extrajudicial killings of very many innocent Kenyans must answer, Honorable Speaker. And we must be a nation where we don't bury our history in the sand. The only reason, Honorable Speaker, why things keep repeating themselves and get into a vicious cycle of repeating the same mistakes as a country is because we never hold anybody to account. It cannot be, Honorable Speaker, that, as this petitioner says, close to 1,200 people have disappeared into thin air, and you didn't see them rise with the Holy Spirit like Jesus Christ did. They just disappeared. Some, their bodies are found, others, their bodies are never found, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, we must get to the root cause of all these things, Honorable Speaker. And I am glad, Honorable Speaker, that under this regime, none other than His Excellency President William Ruto has asserted that every person who is arrested by a police officer must be presented before a police station, recorded in an OB, and charged before a court of law, and not to be killed, as was happening before, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is not just cases of terrorism. Honorable Speaker, you know that famous saying that says when they came for journalists, we were quiet because we were not them. When they went for farmers, we were quiet, we were not them. Until they came for you. That is what happened in this country, Honorable Speaker. We tolerated the extrajudicial killings of certain communities in this country on the basis that they were working with terrorists. And eventually, Honorable Speaker, it came to us. It came to our own neighborhoods. I do not think there is any member of parliament who, if not in your constituency, in your county, you know someone who has been a subject of these enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, as a responsible house, as leaders who value the sanctity of life, we must stand up to be counted. And I really want to challenge the Public Petitions Committee to not only ensure that there are legal mechanisms put in place, and that is a challenge to all of us as a house, but to also ensure that we do not bury what happened in yesteryears under the sand. Whether it is DCI Kinoti, who was in charge of DCI, whether it is Fred Matiang'i, who was the minister in charge, or whether it is the ultimate authority where the buck stopped the office of the president, people who must be held to account for the extrajudicial killings of Kenya must and should be held to account, and this House must rise to the occasion to ensure that that happens by recommending a commission of inquiry.
Order majority, yes. Honorable TJ Kajwang. Okay. Give the Honorable
Mr.
TJ.
Speaker, the member for Kikuyu, as he was speaking very well, but I do not know at what point he became, he changed from being member of Kikuyu to being the majority leader. Because then when he became a majority leader, he assumed certain things that should not happen on this floor. Mr. Speaker, he has been mentioning names, whereas I don't hold brief for anybody, anywhere, however mentioned. But our standing orders and the Constitution itself is clear that no one would be mentioned adversely without giving him a hearing or without his presence. Mr. Speaker, is it in order to mention those people that he has named in person, and yet they do not have an opportunity to defend themselves, Mr. Speaker?
Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I thought the Honorable TJ is usually rattled if I mention the Ruaraka land scandal and Ruaraka constituency, but today I didn't. I only mentioned people who were in office at the time crimes against humanity were carried out in this country. And the person who was in charge of DCI is the person that I have named, DCI Kinoti. The person who was in charge of the Interior, Matiang'i, who happens to have visited the DCI today in poetic justice, Honorable Speaker. And the person where the buck stopped was the president. Just like today, the buck stops in the office of the President of the Republic of Kenya, William Ruto, if there are any extrajudicial killings.
Yes, Honorable Kajwang, what is out of order? He has not adversely mentioned anybody. He simply said they were in office and they were.
That's not what he said, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
yes,
maybe you may want, when you retire, to look at the Hansard.
Yes.
What he is saying is even making it worse. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to play politics with this. And we must never play politics with people who do not have a right to respond. All I said, all that the majority leader mentioned before he recasted his speech was that these persons should be investigated by some agencies. Now, for them to be investigated, it is an adverse finding which, in his opinion, he thinks that these people are somehow. Should he mention it as a matter of order, Mr. Speaker? I'm just asking, is it in order to mention people without giving them an opportunity to be heard? Isn't that simple, Mr. Speaker?
I hear you, Honorable Kajwang. Yeah. What I heard, and we'll check the Hansard, is that DCI was headed by Kinoti, which is fact. Interior Minister was Matiang'i, which was fact. And the head of state is fact. If he goes beyond that, I'll stop him.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for that protection. And you know, I am a very careful person with what I say here. And anywhere else I speak, Honorable Speaker. But let us not run away from the truth, Honorable Speaker. That was my point. And the committee should not be afraid. And all investigative authorities that would investigate such matters should not be afraid, Honorable Speaker. Because I was saying, if we do not deal with our past, Honorable Speaker, nothing stops other regimes, even in the future, from carrying out such extrajudicial killings, unless, Honorable Speaker, people are held to account. Honorable Speaker, you know where we came from before the elections? Many of us lived under extreme fear and threats to life, Honorable Speaker. I vividly recall, Honorable Speaker, when, not Honorable, my good friend, Dennis Itumbi, was abducted just before Christmas of 2021. And, Honorable Speaker, the people who abducted Dennis Itumbi were actually police officers. And it took us not less than 6 hours to even get information from other officers who gave us information that indeed Dennis Itumbi was in the hands of a murderous squad within the police, and specifically the agency that was then under DCI, Kinoti, Honorable Speaker. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I'm only saying this committee should do this country a great honor in recommending that we institute a commission of inquiry such that, Honorable Speaker, it will be known the families of hundreds of Kenyans who have disappeared and they have never seen their bodies. Let them know, Honorable Speaker, what happened to their children and their family members. Hundreds of Kenyans, Honorable Speaker. Today, I was watching when I had the member for Buri speak about Mbijiwe. And I read the story of Mbijiwe, I think, this Sunday in one of the dailies, Honorable Speaker, that the manner in which he disappeared, Honorable Speaker, leaves a lot of questions and there are pointers as to who would have been responsible for their disappearance. And the case of Mbijiwe, the case of young Mishuki from my constituency, and many other Kenyans are similar, Honorable Speaker. And unless we dig and get to the root cause, you never know. Many of the people who are forcing disappearances are still in some offices today. They still wield the same power and authority they wielded yesterday. Nothing will stop them from enforcing probably even the disappearance of members of parliament if we keep quiet. And that's why I'm saying we must not be quiet. Whether it is somebody in Northeastern, whether it is somebody from the coastal region, as Honorable and Baya says, or whether it is someone who is perceived to have been in groups like Mungiki or Chinkororo in Kisii, or whether it is someone that you disagree with politically. Because I was saying, Honorable Speaker, when we kept quiet, because we assumed it is a spirited fight against terrorists, and it is terrorists who are disappearing, they came for politicians. They came for political activists. They went after bloggers. Literally everybody, Honorable Speaker. You remember the threat people are being forced, Honorable Speaker, to subscribe to political ideals and ideologies that they do not believe in. But out of fear, Honorable Speaker, it is a fact. There are even people who are elected in parties they never desired to be in because they lived under extreme fear. They were not like Imani Ishongwa who had the audacity to challenge people and tell them that the worst they can do. And I have said it, Honorable Speaker, I said it in an interview in one of the media houses, Honorable Speaker, in a recorded interview. And that particular media house, because of bias, and I have seen the attack they have leveled against my compatriots, the Honorable Aaron Cheriot, when he speaks about a biased media and cartels in the media houses, because they exist. And nobody is fighting media. We all want a free and objective media. And there is absolutely nothing wrong, Honorable Speaker, with even the media being biased. The media can be biased, but just be kind enough and tell Kenyans where you stand and what political leanings you subscribe to. It is not a secret, Honorable Speaker, that in America everybody knew that Fox News was with the Republicans and was supporting the former President Donald Trump. Many people knew CNN was supporting the Democrats, Honorable Speaker. So that you give Kenyans the latitude of choice to know, if I switch to this station, I will not be influenced by a media that pretends to be objective, but they are very subjective and biased. I was saying, Honorable Speaker, because I said in one of the media stations in an interview that at one point the Commander-in-Chief called me and threatened me. And I told him that the worst he could do was to kill me, but I would not change my position and my stand politically because of a fear of death. And I would never change my position on what I truly believe in, Honorable Speaker. And I say it here because those media houses, because they are biased, they could not even carry that interview. The entire interview, Honorable Speaker, was cancelled. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, let us not be fearful. Let us stand up for what is right and just. Life is sacred. Life is God-given, and no man has authority and power, however powerful they think they are, to take away another man's life, as happened, especially in the last 4 years, Honorable Speaker. It is sad, and we must never see our country degenerate again to the level it degenerated under the handshake regime of before August 8, 2022. With that, Honorable Speaker, I really want to beg, and Honorable Speaker, forgive me because this is very emotional for me. I really want to beg the chair of this committee and members of the Public Petitions Committee not to treat this petition as any other petition. Let us take it with the weight it deserves. If we truly believe in God, if we truly believe in the sanctity of life, and that God is the only giver and taker of life, not governments, not presidents, not cabinet secretaries, not Inspector General of Police, not police corporals, nobody other than God should have the will and the power to give and take away life. Honorable Speaker, I submit.
Thank you. The last one on these petitions, the member for Kamkunji. Give him the mic.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving this opportunity to me to speak on supporting the petition by our sister on judicial killings and disappearances. And I want to echo the feelings expressed by other members of Parliament. And I speak as a member of Parliament whose constituency has been seriously affected by this particular problem. I've had many, many disappearances of people in my constituency. I remember Abdi Karura and Dr. Waititu, who suddenly disappeared one day from Majengo. I remember the killing of Bashir Mohammed, a businessman who had a strong association with my constituency, and many, many others. And to be honest, this is not something that should happen in any functioning democracy. It is something that you expect to happen in countries where, with failed states, in countries where the government simply does not have the support and the authority of the population in which it is based on. So I fully support the idea of creating a commission of inquiry to look at this issue and to go in depth and bring closure to many families who have lost their loved ones. Many of the people who have been killed in this kind of circumstances and many of the disappearances are people like us. They are fathers, they are sons, they are husbands. They leave families who are completely baffled and traumatized up to this moment because they don't know what had happened to their loved ones. So it is our responsibility as members of Parliament to make sure that in this democracy, in this fragile democracy we have in our country, young and fragile democracy, that we make sure that no Kenyan life is taken with no reason whatsoever by faceless state organizations. And I agree also that many of those people who have done these deeds are still working in the government system. You can find them in offices, you would find them at police stations, and to be honest, this is something that can come to haunt us. And therefore, it is very important that we bring justice to the families, we bring closure to this issue, and we make sure that this never, ever happens in our country. And many people say that, this happened only to some few people. It is not. It is widespread, And as has been mentioned here, many communities, not only my own community in Isli and Majengo has suffered, but many more communities have suffered by losing people through these disappearances carried out by known government agents. And in a number of times I have raised this issue in Parliament. The government ministry responsible for internal security has come to lie to this House to say they have no idea where these people have gone. They do not know who has taken them. And the question I ask every time, isn't it not your responsibility to protect the lives of all Kenyans? And if it is not you or your department that has done this thing, don't you have a responsibility to investigate and tell the Kenyan people what has happened? Otherwise, you must take responsibility. And I really urge the House to work on the creation of a task force or a commission of inquiry to be able to thoroughly investigate this matter and bring it to a closure so that the loved ones, the victims' families should know the truth of what happened to their children, what happened to their sons, what happened to their daughters. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity, and I support the petition.
Thank you, honorable members. Order, honorable members, allow me to go back to order number 3 and convey a message from the Senate. Honorable members, there's a message from the Senate on approval of appointment of a member to the Parliamentary Service Commission under Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution. Honorable members, pursuant provision of Standing Order number 41, I wish to report to the House that I have received a message from the Senate regarding approval of appointment of a member to the Parliamentary Service Commission under Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution. In the message, honorable members, the Speaker of the Senate conveys that the Senate on 28 February 2023 considered the report of the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights on the proposed appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission pursuant to Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution, Section 9C of the Parliamentary Service Act and Standing Order 77(3), and by a resolution approved the appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission. Honorable members, you may recall that on Wednesday, 15 February 2023, this House approved the appointment of Honorable Johnston Modama as a Commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission, following which I conveyed the fact to the Senate for concurrence. In this regard, the approval by the Senate of the said nominee concludes the bicameral appointment process contemplated under Article 127 of the Constitution. As a matter of fact, the Honorable Johnston Modama has already been sworn in and is discharging his duties as a commissioner. For the record, honorable members, I have already said that. I have sworn him in and he's already discharging his duties. I thank you. Honorable members, although it's a little late, there were 2 schools in the gallery. I'm told I've left, but we should acknowledge Sawagongo High School from Game Siaya was in the gallery, and Nairobi River Primary School from Embakasi West. I'm told they have left, but on your behalf and my own behalf, we welcome them to the House of Parliament. I'm sure they're still within the precincts. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. Submission of nominees to Garissa and Mbeere North constituencies from the National Government Constituency Development Fund Board. 2, research on the state of certified secretaries, CS profession in Kenya from the Institute of Certified Secretaries. 3, performance audit report on provision of maternal and neonatal health care by the Ministry of Health from the Office of the Auditor General. 4, annual performance report for the period 1st July 2021 to 30th June 2022 from the Ministry of Defense. 5, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following institutions for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Kaimosi Friends University College, Siruti Technical and Vocational College, Awendo, Madera Technical and Vocational College, St. Paul's Kibabi Diploma Teachers Training College, Kongoni Technical and Vocational College, Kiminini Technical and Vocational College, Bunyala Technical and Vocational College, St. Augustine Teachers Training College, Iregi, Nzoia Sugar Company Limited, Kenya Wildlife Service, and Warehouse Receipt Systems Council. 6, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements in respect of the following constituencies for the year ended 30th June 2021 and the certificates therein. Bondo, Lari, Hamisi, Garissa Township, Seme, Endebes, Funyula, Webuye East. I see I got the attention of Honorable Jikalo when I mentioned Seme. Chuka Igamba Ngombe, Dharaka, Kimilili, and Samburu North. 7 is a report of the Auditor General and financial statements of East Africa Skills Transformation and Regional Integration Project, credit number 6334-KE, Kenya Coast National Polytechnic, for the year ended 30th June 2022 and the certificates therein. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, the 7th of March, 2023. Report of joint sitting of the National Assembly Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and the Senate Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on the approval hearing for Dr. Susan Jemtai Koech, the nominee for appointment to the position of Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Member of the Kenya Parliament delegation to where? IPU, John Kiari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And today, Tuesday, the 7th March 2023, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. This is the report of the Kenya delegation to the 145th Assembly of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, also known as the Parliament of Parliaments, and related meetings held in Nusa Dua, Indonesia, from the 20th to the 24th March 2022. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Next order.
Order number 6.
Honorable Speaker.
You said your statement will take 3 minutes.
Just 1 more minute, or 1.5. Honorable Speaker, neither Standing Order number 172 nor 173 presupposes a situation where either the majority or minority side of the committee can veto, oppose, or otherwise challenge the appointment or change thereof of House committee membership by parliamentary parties to various House committees. Where the majority or minority parties purport to do so, it is tantamount to infringing on the right and exclusive mandate of the party seeking to make those appointments or effect changes in its appointments. Honorable Speaker, our reading of Standing Orders 172 and 173 does not establish that they were meant to grant either the majority or minority side powers to veto or in any way challenge the other side's choice or decisions in this regard. And I want to conclude because I'm just paraphrasing now. Honorable Speaker, the stance taken by the majority party membership in the Committee on Selection on this matter not only therefore sets a dangerous precedent, but has the added effect of stifling the practice of true multi-party democracy under Article 4 of Article 2 of the Constitution. Honorable Speaker, it is our submission that there's neither provision in the Constitution of Kenya, legislation, standing orders, nor any precedent in the traditions and practices of the Houses of Parliament in the Commonwealth that would support the impunged position adopted by the minority party membership, I think majority party, in the Committee on Selection on the matter in question. And I want to conclude now. Honorable Speaker, finally, Honorable Speaker, we invite you to apply your mind and vast experience to this matter and deliver a considered ruling that will not only unlock the unnecessary stalemate, but also preserve the integrity and credibility of the institution of the National Assembly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai. Since you are inviting me to make a determination and you make reference to the conduct in the committee where both you and your colleague in the majority sit, let me give him a minute or two to make a comment on the matter.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me thank the leader of minority on that statement. However, Honorable Speaker, if you read our standing orders, Standing Order 87-2, Honorable Speaker, Standing Order says that it shall be out of order to introduce an argument on any specific question upon which the House has taken a decision during the same session, except upon a motion to rescind the decision made with the permission of the Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I read that standing order because having keenly listened to the leader of minority, I don't know whether he intends to rescind the decision of the House and of the committee, because the committee also sits on behalf of the larger plenary, and therefore a decision made in committee, unless there is a motion to rescind that decision, then I just wonder what the minority leader may be inviting you to do. However, Honorable Speaker, the issues are spoken to, and because he has alluded to the fact that the leadership or those in the majority may want to stifle any changes within the minority. And I did state here, Honorable Speaker, it is not our business in the majority to manage the minority, and we have no such intentions. We'll just invite the minority to manage their own affairs within their coalition, just like those of us in the majority manage our own affairs. And Honorable Speaker, without involving the majority in how they arrive at their decisions. But I did indicate, Honorable Speaker, even when the minority whip raised that issue on the floor here, that indeed before the committee a decision had been made. And that is how the motion that appeared on the floor of the House in the manner it came, without changes in the minority party. Honorable Speaker, even in committee, we did indicate to the minority leader, and I want to repeat the same. In the House, the minority has every right to make whatever changes they want to make. And as chair of the Selections Committee, Honorable Speaker, I want to assure the leader of minority that should he indicate the desire to make any changes, we are ready and willing to convene a meeting. And indeed, Honorable Speaker, as we adjourned that meeting, we did indicate that we are trying to come up with a framework on how members of parliament to enjoy uninterrupted service in committees during a session of parliament. And when we want to change members in the leadership, Honorable Speaker, there at least be some basis so that we always enjoy some objectivity in how we place members in committees or displace others, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I want to invite the leader of minority, if there are any changes that the minority may desire to make, the Selections Committee, even as we work on that framework, because we did indicate, and I think since he's a member of that committee, together with the Deputy Leader, Honorable Robert Mbui, who was not in the meeting that day, we had indicated from the beginning that we do not want the Selections Committee to be a committee that only sits once in a session of Parliament, but we will occasionally sit to review the performance of members in committees. Performance right from attendance and active participation, so that we encourage our members to give their skills and expertise in committees. Therefore, if you are a member of a committee, you usually don't attend that committee, it is only fair that you allow another member who has the time to offer his time before a committee. And that's the kind of framework we want to ensure, and I did indicate, Honorable Speaker, is only in the pursuit of fairness, so that tomorrow I don't remove the Honorable Naomi from one committee and take her to the other committee, just at the whim of it. So that we have a framework. If the Honorable Naomi, and she will forgive me for using her as an example, usually doesn't attend the Transport Committee, and she's a member of the Transport Committee, for instance, and the Honorable Kagombe here is an engineer who wants to offer his skills and expertise in road construction before that committee, then we have basis to remove the Honorable Naomi and get someone with the skills to serve in that particular committee. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, is just to reiterate to the leader of minority and the minority leadership that we are very much willing, even tomorrow or the day after, to convene a Selections Committee meeting even before we work on that framework, so that he doesn't in any way feel that the majority wants to lord over them. We are a very democratic majority party and majority coalition that intends to facilitate the work of the minority in offering meaningful oversight. And indeed, we want to see that even in the oversight committees, they place the best within their team, so that those who may have stolen from Telcom Kenya and the 34 billion shillings that we have seen from the Auditor General's report, stolen from the fuel subsidy fund, Honorable Speaker, we can offer meaningful oversight and ensure that these things do not ever happen again, Honorable Speaker. If you can only protect me from the Honorable Anjala. I don't know why he's fond of always shouting in committees, in plenary, and everywhere, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, let me just assure the leader of minority, as much as he may, and Honorable Speaker, with your indulgence, you allowed that statement, but I was just wondering where it sits in view of the Standing Order 87-2, in terms of seeking to reopen something that was already decided on. But should he be seeking guidance on the way forward? Honorable Speaker, I want to assure you and the House that as chair of the Selections Committee, we are ready to facilitate the minority leadership to make whatever changes they want to make, and it will be within their right, Honorable Speaker. But at the end of the day, Honorable Speaker, again, we must always remember, and I did remind the leader of the minority whip last time, that committees act and sit on behalf of the House, and whatever decision then, and any report that comes from a committee, then must eventually land in plenary for the House to make a decision and a determination on it, so that, Honorable Speaker, we entrench our democracy such that we do not seem to be infringing on anybody's rights, even members of parliament, whether they are within our coalition or any other coalition, Honorable Speaker. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I beg to respond in that manner.
Thank you, Honorable Majority and Minority. From what both of you are saying, I don't see any problem. I will advise the Minority Leader to liaise with the Majority Leader as the Chair of Selections Committee, and if you wish to call for a sitting of the committee and prosecute your issues, go ahead and do so. Next statement is from the Honorable Joshua Kandia. Yes, Carol Omondi, what is the problem? What is out of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I was just wondering under order Standing Order number 91, whether we could use that to question where a member is bringing forward a legal argument that is not founded, because it will not be substantiated. I think the problem with, if you read Standing Orders number 172, 171 and 172, is that there's a hangover that we have from our previous political system, parliamentary system. And that is what is explaining the statement by the Minority Leader. If you look at this, what we have now, a presidential system, which informs the phrasing of Standing Order 171 and 172, the placement of members in committees is the work of the selection committee. It's not the work of the political parties, as is in a parliamentary system of government. It is the work of the selection committee. Why? Because every member walks into this chamber with a free mandate under presidential system of government. In a parliamentary system, you walk into this chamber with a bound mandate, having sought your election on a political party platform. So it is very different, Mr. Speaker, and I'm wondering whether it is in order for the Minority Leader to try to apply rules of parliamentary systems of government to a presidential system of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I hear you, but I don't want to open debate on this. I think I had already given direction, Honorable Wandai. Give him the mic.
Listen, I think the Honorable Karoli Omondi didn't listen to me keenly, because he's now reading Standing Order 171 and 172 in isolation. And I went further to read 173, which I want just to repeat for record purposes.
It is on Hansard.
And I can also excuse him because he's a new member, you know, Honorable Speaker. He's just learning the ropes. Mr. Speaker, 173 requires that unless otherwise provided by any written law or these standing orders, the Committee on Selection shall, in consultation with parliamentary parties other than parliamentary parties and independents, nominate members who shall serve on a select committee. That is the catchphrase. Thank you. Thank you.
Honorable Kandia.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining regarding the stalled Grandich Water Supply Project Phase 2 in Baringo County. Mr. Speaker, can you protect me from Wanjala?
Honorable Wanjala, Honorable Kandia is seeking the protection of the chair from you.
Honorable Speaker, Grandich Dam was constructed between 1994 and 2000 under Grandich Phase 1 project funded by the government of Kenya with the support from the Italian government. In 2007, the dam system presented challenges including lack of wastewater management system in Kabarnet town, functional failures of the dam instrumentation systems, high operation and maintenance costs, among others. Honorable Speaker, to address the challenges, the board was prompted to design a phase 2 of the project through a loan of euros 18,856,000 from the government of Italy. The scope of phase 2 of the project included the extension of water supply to Kapartonjo, Kaptorokwa, Fayakabasis, Kituro, and Kapkut. Sewerage system for Kabarnet Town, purchase and installation of the dams, electrical and instrumentation equipment, among other works. The contracts for the works was awarded in 2016 to Cospin SRL in joint venture with Norofi SRL and Hydroesi Engineering SRL. The dam was expected to commence in 2016 and be completed in 2018. However, as of May 2018, the completion rate of the named project stood at 3.1%, which was far below the initial agreement. Honorable Speaker, for 7 years since inception of this project, the contractor severally requested for extension of the timelines. But despite the numerous extensions that were granted, nothing much has been done except the setting up of contractors' camp, which is also incomplete. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I seek a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining on the following. 1, could the chairperson explain the reasons why phase 2 of Grandich Water Dam project that was commenced in 2016 and expected to be completed in 2018 as stalled for the last 7 years? 2, could the government consider nullifying the tender awarded to MS Cospin SRL in joint venture with Norofi SRL and Hydroesi Engineering SRL for inability to undertake works despite having been granted several extensions in 2016, in 2018, in 2020, and in 2022, and awarded to a capable contractor? 3, what measures has the government put in place to ensure completion of the said project, including construction of a sewerage line for Kabarnet Town, which was part of the scope of works under the contract? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I think next is the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, member for Navokoli.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise on Standing Order 43, especially Part 1, under General Statements, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, education is a very important foundation to any citizenry. And we witnessed a situation, Honorable Speaker, on Friday last week, where our Speaker, substantive Speaker, I was of the opinion that I would have raised this when he's on the chair, had to get award, Honorable Speaker, for the doctorate in, from Kiambu University. Honorable Speaker, it's my wish that I seek your acceptance. I congratulate the Speaker, the substantive Speaker, upon his attainment of this honorary degree, which is a prestigious honor, Honorable Speaker, especially for a person who is leading a house like ours, a person who has traveled a journey of academic concern, and Honorable Speaker, a person who has had it all in terms of politics. When you look at his period of existence, Honorable Speaker, he has gone a journey in terms of the political parties, in terms of political leadership, in terms of house leadership, and Honorable Speaker, eventually, he has attained the highest level in terms of academics. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I rise to seek that it is important we acknowledge the Speaker, especially upon his attainment and attainment of a PhD in from the Kiambu University. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honorable Bowen Kangogo?
Honorable Speaker, I just want to seek your guidance on the statements read by the Honorable member of Baringo Central, to do with Kirandik Dam. I think the question is supposed to be directed to me as the chair of water, irrigation, and blue economy. But how that question is framed, it's like it's addressing it to the chairperson of environment and forestry. I want to seek your guidance, Madam Speaker, on that question, because it is something which we had discussed in our committee, and I don't know if it has been transferred to the Committee of Environment. So please, we're seeking your guidance.
Yes, I think, Honorable Bowen, you're right. I think this is because previously there wasn't a Blue Economy, Irrigation and Water Committee. So I think for the Hansard purposes, it will be referred to the Committee on Blue Economy. Okay, now we go to questions. The Honorable Member for Lamu East, Honorable Rarieda Obo.
Asante Bispika. Swali hili limengojewa sana, mpaka wenyewe wamekuja hapa na dadangu rafiki yangu Thueba ametoka Sio, amekuja kuona vile tutauliza hili swali kwa sababu wao wanaathiriwa sana. Thank you Bispika for giving me this opportunity to ask question number 1 to 2023 to the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and the Digital Economy. 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why Siu, Shanga, and Mkokoni in Lamu East constituency are suffering from digital exclusion by not being connected to the mobile network? 2. Could the Cabinet Secretary further explain reason why the entire Lamu East constituency is still served by 2G network when the rest of the country is on 4G network and it is soon transiting to 5G network? 3. What plans does the ministry have to ensure that Siu, Shanga, and Mkokoni area are connected to the mobile phone network and that the network coverage in Lamu East constituency upgraded from current 2G to 4G? Thank you, Speaker.
Next question is by Member for Embakasi Central, Honorable Benjamin Gadiru. Oh yeah, the question by Honorable Rarieda, Member for Lamu East, is referred to the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed. Let him have the mic.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to ask question number 013, 2023. Directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Labor and Social Protection. Number 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of Inua Jamii program, detailing the number of the current beneficiaries and those who have exited the program? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why there are delays in disbursement of cash transfers to beneficiaries under Inua Jamii program, and state what plans the ministry has put in place to ensure timely disbursement of the funds? Number 3, what mechanism is the ministry instituting to ensure timely replacement of beneficiaries of the Inua Jamii program who exit the FAD through death, as well as orphan and vulnerable children, OVC, who attain the age of 23 years, which is set as the exit age? And when does the ministry intend to carry out mass registration of fresh beneficiary, noting that many Kenyans have attained the eligibility of age of 70 years, and others have become orphans, while some are now living with disability? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Koinoin, yeah, Honourable Brighton Yegon. That question goes to the Departmental Committee on Social Protection. Okay. Yes, Honourable Brighton.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I would like to ask the following question to the Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport. Question number 1. What plans has the ministry put in place to recarpet the BC Changoi Kimulot Kaptengecha Road in Konoin constituency, which has been in deplorable state for several years? Question number 2. When does the ministry intend to restore the said road to motorable condition in order to reduce the number of road accidents and enhance movement of people, goods, and services within the region served by the road? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. That question shall be replied before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. The next is the Honourable Member for Kirinyaga Central, Honourable Joseph Gitari.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question 015 of 2003, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. My questions are: could the Cabinet Secretary state whether the criteria used for placement of students in Form 1, particularly in day schools, takes into consideration the proximity of runners to the schools? Question number 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that day scholars who walk for distances of over 10 kilometers to school in wee hours of the morning and evening are guaranteed security from the potential dangers such as attacks by criminals, gangs, abduction, vulnerability to incidences of rape? I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. That question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Education. Next is the Honourable Member for Westlands Constituency, Honourable Timothy Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to ask a question number 016 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, for Roads and Transport, could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of the approved design of Wayakwe, including the road profiles, all road designages, road lighting, service lanes, and pedestrian walkways and crossings, and clarify whether the ongoing construction works on the named road are being carried out in accordance with the approved design? Question number 2, state the timeline for completion of the Kangemi and Dumboini overpasses and restoration of access roads destroyed during the construction. Question number 3, explain why there are no footbridges, pedestrian walkways, and road markings on the said road, and further explain why the provided pedestrian crossings are kilometers apart from each other thereby escalating road accidents on the said road and disadvantaging school-going children, the elderly persons, persons with disabilities, and emergency response teams. Question number 4, explain why the ministry approved the construction of the Westlands roundabout footbridge without incorporating a ramp for persons with disabilities, and state whether there are any plans to have one installed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi. This question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. Next question is by the Honorable Member for Nakuru Town, Honorable David Kakaria. He's not here. The next question is by the Honorable Member for Machakos County, Honorable Joyce Kamene. Okay, I think she has sent an apology, so it will be deferred to the next order paper. Next is a question by Member for Nyatike, Honorable Tom Odenge.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to ask question number 19 of 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details of persons or firms who participated in the tender Kenha 2579 of 2022 and Kenha 2580 of 2022 for construction of Masara Muhuru Bay Road advertised by the Kenha Highway Authority? Number 2, provide details of the contractor awarded the tender for the named project, including the contract sum, and clarify whether the due process prescribed in law was followed in awarding the tender. Number 3, state the reasons why works on the said road have not commenced, the expected time of commencing the works, and the measures put in place to expedite completion of the named road within the contract period. I thank you.
That question will be replied to by the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure. Next question is by the Honorable Member for Embakasi, Honorable Mark Mwenje.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, explain why the Betting Control and Licensing Board is no longer processing new applications for licenses, given that their service level agreement indicates that the application and issuance license process takes 6 months? Question 2, state when the board will resume the processing of new and pending applications, including licenses that the board had cleared for renewal for the year 2022-2023. Question 3, explain measures instituted to ensure that where the board had ceased to process and issue licenses with an expiration date of 30th June 2023, any dealers applying for renewal of licenses in the next financial year would not be required to submit current licenses as proof of compliance. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. That question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Administration and Internal Affairs. Yes, what's your point?
Madam Speaker, I rise on Standing Order number 42A3 that recognizes that the Speaker is supposed to approve the question and determine the Cabinet Secretary responsible for the matters to which it relates. and the clerk shall at an appropriate time publish the question on the order paper. Cognizant of the order, Executive Order number 1 of 2023, the BCLB has since been moved from the Ministry of Interior to the Executive Office of the President, and therefore I'm asking for your guidance to see whether the Minister for Interior and National Coordination is actually able to answer that question of BCLB that has since been put under the Office of the Head of Public Service. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, I think we'll get the clerks to do some research and then we can be advised accordingly. I'll make the announcement before I leave the chair. Thank you for that intervention. The next question is by member for Alego Usonga, Honorable Samuel Atandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question 21 of 2023. And the question is directed to Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communications and Digital Economy. Could the Cabinet Secretary, one, shed light on the allegations of interference by the Ministry and conflict of interest by the selection panel with regard to the ongoing recruitment of members of the Board of the Media Council of Kenya, and provide details of the measures that have been put in place to guarantee integrity of the recruitment process? Number two, provide details of the report of State Corporations Advisory Committee on the assessment of the outgoing board members and indicate if any of the members qualified for renewal of their term. Three, state whether a legal advisory has been provided by Attorney General on independence of the council and whether the advisory has been taken into account in the ongoing recruitment. And lastly, explain the measures the ministry has taken to address loopholes in the recruitment process of the board of the Media Council of Kenya, which previously led to court cases in 2013, 2014, and 2019, including the current cases in 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. That will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. I think we're done with the questions. Yeah.
Order number 8, motion, general debate on the proposal to Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. Resumption of debate.
Okay. The Honorable Member for Baringo North, Joseph Makilap. He's not there. Okay. The Honorable Member for Bureti, Kibet Kimingoi. The Honorable Member Mugambi from Buri constituency. Who left their cards? The Honorable Member for Marsabit County, Naomi Wako. Yes, she had spoken on it. Huh? The Honorable Member for Masiga, Joshua Mwalio. Have people left their cards?
Madam Speaker had
okay.
spoken on this.
Okay.
Yes.
You not spoken, okay. Okay, the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to support this motion number 8 on the general debate on the proposal to us in Parliament here to consider the amending of the Constitution and the standing orders. Honorable Speaker, as you can see, the memorandum to this House by His Excellency the President had two issues.
One, to look into the matter of amendment of the Constitution to allow the creation of the office of the leader of the opposition, and two, thereafter, to look into the amendment of the standing orders and the Constitution, if possible, to include several funds into the Constitution of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would want to maybe make the first approach on the issue of allowing the office of the leader of the opposition. As we can see, Honorable Speaker, in a short while ago, we had an issue where the minority leader is looking into the issue of the selection committee. Had we had the official leader of the opposition into this House, Honorable Speaker, there is the way the side of the minority could align itself with the leadership of the official opposition, who could by now be His Excellency, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. The similar, Honorable Speaker, this is going to also look into the issue of the government side, whereby it will now be putting the issue of ministers coming into the House, unlike today, where we are to refer to the chairman or chairpersons of various committees to answer questions. It is a better and a direct approach of issues, whereby we can face the person who holds that office and place that person to account, rather than, Honorable Speaker, getting a longer route, which the Constitution of Kenya 2010 did not envisage that it will be longer. Instead, by then, having moved from the old Constitution to the new Constitution, it was a milestone then, of course, we must appreciate. But now, this is a level where we are going to make it better. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, the proposal to have the office of the leader of the opposition is a good thing. We were in this House last Parliament, Honorable Speaker, where we had the issue of the BBI. Had we gone that route, Honorable Speaker, by now it would not be there. But now that it never functioned, it never worked, today we have an opportunity to anchor the office of the leader of the opposition into the Constitution of Kenya, so that, Honorable Speaker, we can move forward using the examples or the issues that are happening today. Honorable Speaker, on the second part, which now the memorandum looks into, is the issue of anchoring in the Constitution and the standing orders various funds, Honorable Speaker. Funds to do with the issue to do with CDF. Honorable Speaker, as we are aware, it has been a tall order each year, especially each first year of the sitting. There are always challenges. The executive wants to shift to goalposts. They do not want to give out CDF on time. They do not want to make it, they want now to make it as if, Honorable Speaker, members of Parliament have to pester or beg the executive to allow them. Despite the fact that, Honorable Speaker, we vote for these funds, disbursement is solely in the hands of the executive, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, it becomes their prerequisite on when to disperse. But the moment we anchor this into the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, and also anchor it into the standing orders, it will rather be very mandatory, it will be obvious, and nobody will have to challenge it. Honorable Speaker, you find there are very many legal litigations onto the issue of NGCDF and CDF from the inception of 2003. We find that, Honorable Speaker, whoever wants to hammer the members of Parliament, whoever wants to throw a stone at Parliament, is all the issue of CDF. Should we anchor this in the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, it will be a better move, so that, Honorable Speaker, we have a fund which is forming a full tire recognized by the Constitution of Kenya, so that we can all enjoy. And, Honorable Speaker, it's not going to come as NGCDF alone. It's also going to look into the affirmative action, a fund which goes to our sisters representing our various counties. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, all of us will have a cake to share in terms of representation. Any kind of oversight we will undertake, Honorable Speaker, it will be an oversight which is backed up by the resources. Honorable Speaker, we do say that once you have the power, power must be supported by resources. But if you have power and you have no authority, you have no resources, Honorable Speaker, it's empty, and it's an empty debate. It's important that these funds are given, are supported into the Constitution, so that, Honorable Speaker, today we could be talking of a good figure that has gone into our various funds. Today, Honorable Speaker, as we speak, we are happy the government has disbursed funds for bursaries, but we've not gotten the funds, Honorable Speaker, for development. We are just a stone throw away. What are we going to do to our various projects which we propose? As you are aware, Honorable Speaker, procurement must be followed to the latter. We must follow procurement processes. When are we going to procure? We did amend last year, last Parliament, Honorable Speaker, in the Parliament in 2015, the Public Procurement Disposal Act. You cannot procure until you get the funds. If today, people have not gotten, various constituencies have not gotten the funds, therefore, Honorable Speaker, it means we foresee a situation where not less than a month from the time you get the funding, you're going to procure. We are now in March, which means by 30th June, end of the year, financial year, most of the projects will not have been procured. We will push forward to the next year, and it's simply going to be a burden. But once we put this into our constitution, Honorable Speaker, it will be easier and faster for us to be able to proceed. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, I see this memorandum to the President as being a good memorandum, as being a memorandum which can open a round table of discussion, so that, Honorable Speaker, we might not end up just looking at the issue of anchoring the official opposition into the Constitution, but, Honorable Speaker, opening up could be, this is a forum to ease the tension that could be there, so that once we are discussing the issue of the official leader of the opposition, we could also discuss what is going on today in the country. Where are we as a state, as a country? When can we see our leaders talking to each other, Honorable Speaker? When can we see the party leaders talking to each other, Honorable Speaker? Isn't this the opportunity, Honorable Speaker, that men who sit and talk at each other are better than men who sit and talk against each other? Therefore, Honorable Speaker, is a good opportunity, is a good moment to open up a discussion which can see all of us in the country sitting on a round table and discussing. Honorable Speaker, looking at this issue of discussion, it could not only just be discussion on leadership alone. We should also be looking at the discussion over what is happening in the country today. Our exchange rate is coming down. We see a scenario, Honorable Speaker, where the issue of very unfriendly discussions are coming, could be from within or from without. The issue of lesbianism, the issue of homosexuality, the issue of education at large. Where are we as a country? It's important, Honorable Speaker. This is a window. A good discussion, Honorable Speaker, should not necessarily begin from the door. It can as well begin from the window, so that you signal and get your signatures right. So it's a window, Honorable Speaker, which can open a round table discussion of political class and all leaders in this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to support.
Thank you. I now call upon Honorable Zengu, member for Mwingi North.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity for me to contribute into this motion of amending the Constitution to entrench the funds, the NGCDF funds, the GAF funds, amending the Constitution to create the office of the official leader of opposition, among other changes that have been proposed by the President. And from the onset, I want to support the thinking or the mind that informed this kind of thinking, to the extent that we can amend the Constitution to create NGCDF fund as a constitutional fund. Madam Speaker, you notice that in the past almost 8 years, there has been a lot of court cases in and out of court trying to quash or to kill the CDF by some people that think CDF funds are usually there to help members. They think that CDF funds is a fund for the member to enrich themselves, not knowing that CDF funds are usually funds are used to really support those poor students, poor families, and that in areas like where I come from, a lot of children have gone to school because of these funds, and it really is everything that the community has. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to support the fact that this fund must be entrenched in the Constitution, so that we avoid some busy bees, some street lawyers who just want to feel like They want to be known, they just want to be known and to be seen by frustrating something that is so crucial to the country. I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, some of us have benefited from funds similar to the one of CDF, because had we not been educated by the community, we will not be here in this house. So I want to support that. Same way I want to support the entrenchment of GAF fund into the Constitution so that we avoid the same kind of court cases that NGCDF has suffered. On the matter of the leader of official opposition, I want to differ with the thinking because I think our country does not have a provision for that, and I think it will bring a confusion because we have a presidential system and not a parliamentary system. So I think I would want to differ and say that that may bring confusion, and maybe even how to create the office and to operationalize the office may become a challenge. On the matter of CSS coming to Parliament and being answering questions directly, I also want to differ with that and say that I think it's a scheme to kill the committee approach of Parliament. And I think the system as it has been working, it's been working well, so that committees can also have some work to do. When we bring CSS in Parliament, then we kill the committee system. And I think those people who created the Constitution had borrowed from other countries where committee systems really work. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to support partially the proposed amendment and say that there shouldn't be amendment to bring in whatever is acceptable to most members, and whatever is not acceptable should be dropped. I submit. Thank you.
Mheshimiwa Spika, naomba niunge mkono hoja hii 100%.
Yeah, so if you have not spoken to the motion, as a ranking member and on account of seniority, proceed and make your contributions.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu ya hilo. Nashukuru sana kupata nafasi hii, kwa sababu hoja hii nafikiri inajaribu kuleta tiba kati ya masala mengi ambayo yamekuwa mazito sana katika nchi hii. Tukiangalia kwamba kutoka mambo ya ugatuzi yalipoingia, masuala haya ya kiongozi ya wachache bungeni yamekuwa ni ofisi ambayo haijakuwa na mwakilishi vilivyo, ili kuhakikisha kwamba masala yote yanayofanyika kuhusiana na kazi ya serikali ina mtu ambaye anajaribu kuangazia na kuhakikisha kwamba kazi njema inafanyika katika serikali hii. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni matumaini yangu kwamba kama hoja hii itakubalika, italeta usawa mwingi na kuhakikisha kwamba kazi nyingi zitakuwa zinafanyika bungeni, kwa kuhakikisha kwamba wakati kiongozi wa wengi na wa upinzani wanapokutana hapa, tutakuwa tunajua kwamba mwelekeo tunakwenda wapi. Pili, Mheshimiwa Spika, masala ya CDF kujumuishwa kwa kutaka karabati katiba, nafikiri ni masala fulani ambayo yanatekana kupewa kipaumbele, na ndio maana Rais wa Jamhuri akatoa taarifa ama maombi yake katika bunge hili kwamba wabunge wangeliweza kujadili masala haya ili kuhakikisha kwamba swala hili la CDF kutoka kubuniwa kwake limekuwa ni swala ambalo limewapa watu wachache kazi, hasa mahakama na watu wengine tofauti, kwa sababu ya kukimbia makotini na kuona kwamba wana lengo la kutaka kusambaratisha mradi huu wa CDF. Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri mahakama ina kazi nyingi muhimu za kufanya, kwa sababu tutashangaa kwamba hata juzi mahakama ilikuwa inazungumzia masuala ya mashoga na wasagaji, Na hapa masuala ya CDF ambayo yangekuwa ya maana sana yanapewa kipao ambacho hakieleweki tunaelekea wapi. Sasa inafika mahali mahakama ina kazi yake, inafanywa karabati wa kazi ambayo ingefanywa bungeni imeanza kutengenezwa mahakamani. Na ndio maana tunasema kwamba penginepo ni muhimu sisi wenye kujumuika na masala kama haya tujaribu kupata tatuzi ya kuhakikisha kwamba katiba imefanywa karabati, ili tuhakikishe kwamba sheria hizi zimerekebishwa na kuhakikisha kwamba CDF itakuwa ni kitengo ambacho kinatoa huduma zilizo njema, kwa sababu ukiangalia jamii zetu kule nyuma, ikifika wakati wa kufunguliwa kwa shule, basari inapokosekana, ni kazi ambayo huwa ni ngumu hasa kwa mjumbe, kwa sababu yeye ndio anakuwa ATM na hawezi kutosheleza masala haya. Kwa hivyo ninaomba kwamba kwa wale ambao penginepo angekuwa na roho mbili kuhusu swala hili, wafikirie mara mbili kwamba CDF ni ya msaada kwa wananchi walio wengi na ni msaada kwa taifa nzima, kwa sababu katika sehemu mbalimbali nafikiri miundo msingi ambayo inatengenezwa katika mashule yetu nyingi inatokana na CDF. Nikianza kazi bungeni 92 nilikuwa na shule za upili 6 peke yake. Kufikia hivi sasa nina shule 27 na nashukuru kwamba hizi zote ziliweza kupatikana kwa sababu ya hazina ya CDF. Bwana Spika, masuala haya ya jinsia ambayo pia yamekuwa ya utata sana kwa zaidi ya karibu vipindi vitatu vya bunge, kwamba iko haja kuhakikisha kwamba jinsia zina uwakilishaji sawa katika jumba hili. Tumekuwa kila tukijaribu kupiga hesabu zetu, mambo hayaendi vile yanavyotakikana, na upinzani unakuwa kati yetu sisi wenyewe kwa wenyewe, upande wa wanaume na upande wa kina mama tunabishana, na mara nyingi hatupati suluhisho, kiwango kwamba ilifika mahali mahakama kuu ama jaji mkuu aliwahi kutoa ilani kwamba bunge linaweza likakatizwa kutokana na kucheleweshwa kwa kubuniwa kwa sheria hii. Nina imani kwamba katiba itakapokuwa imefanywa karabati na mambo haya yote kujaribu kuangaziwa, hili swala litakuwa ni historia, kwa sababu kila jinsia itajipata kwamba ina uwakilishaji tosha, ili kuhakikisha kwamba watu wote wanapata uwakilishi vilivyo. Mheshimiwa Spika, swala hili la mawaziri kuingia katika hili bunge nafikiri litakuwa la manufaa sana kwetu, kwa sababu wakati mwingine inatakana tuangalie sheria vile ilivyo. Sheria ilitengenezwa na mwanadamu na inaweza kukarabatiwa na mwanadamu, na mahali ambapo tunaweza tukatumika ili kuhakikisha kwamba ukarabati umefanywa, naona ni bora tupate kugeuza sura zetu na kuhakikisha kwamba sheria hii inafanywa karabati ili mawaziri wapate kuja hapa. Tumewahi kuwa na visa vingi ambavyo tunahitaji mawaziri kufika katika bunge hili ili kueleza kinaga ubwaga ni kitu gani kinachoendelea katika wizara zao. Lakini wakati mwingi tunapotegemea kamati, huwa nazo pia zinategemea kupata majibu kutoka kwa wizara, na wakati mwingine wana shida kutupatia majibu. Mara nyingi watu wameleta hapa petition na kuuliza statement, lakini majibu yanayopata kutoka kwa komiti wakati mwingine zinashinda kuchambuliwa vilivyo, kwa sababu majibu hayako sahihi na hayawezi kutusaidia. Sasa inakuwa ni kama ambaye tunauliza petition zile, maswala yale, lakini hakuna mtu ambaye yuko tayari kusema ule kweli jinsi ilivyo. Nina imani kwamba hawa mawaziri watakapoanza kutumika hapa, maswala mengi ambayo yamekumba nchi hii, kama maswala ambayo tulikuwa tukiyazungumza leo hapa mchana kuhusiana na usalama wa nchi hii, nafikiri mengi yatapata kuwa na mwisho. Nakumbuka wakati fulani mwaka jana, watu wangu wa Mwembeni walikuwa na uvamizi, na wakavamiwa na watu 40 katika boma walio na silaha, na kituo cha polisi ni kama kilomita 5. Lakini kwa sababu inaonekana kwamba watu wa usalama walikuwa wamehusika kuhakikisha kwamba watu wale watatekeleza ujangili ule, hawakuweza kujihusisha vilivyo, na hata baada ya kituo cha mbali kilipofika, magari yaliyohusika kunaswa na watu fulani kushikwa, kilichotushangaza ni kwamba baada ya watu hawa kupelekwa mahakamani, wakili wa serikali alikuja mahakamani na akasema kwamba kesi hii anaisitisha pasipokuwa na sababu. Ushahidi umepatikana, exhibit gari ni hizi, watu wameshikwa ni hawa, na leo wakili wa serikali anasema ninakatiza kesi hii. Ni jambo la kusikitisha kwamba kutokea wakati huo mpaka sasa hatuja kuwa na suluhisho la kujua watu hawa ambao nyumba zao zilichomwa, walipigwa, hasa kina mama, watu wazima, hatima yao imebaki wapi. Kama ilikuwa penginepo ni njia ya kuwafanyia eviction, lakini utaratibu haukufuatwa na sheria ilivunjika ama ilivunjwa, kwa nini mpaka sasa hakuja kuchukuliwa hatua yoyote ya kuhakikisha kwamba usalama umepatikana? Na hapa tukija tukiulizwa statement, tunapata majibu ambayo hayaeleweki na mawaziri hawapatikani, kwa sababu sheria inawakataza kufika katika bunge hili. Kwa hivyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, nakubali na kuiunga mkono hoja hii, nikiamini kwamba umaarufu wa kiongozi wa nchi aliona kwamba ni vyema bunge likapate kujumuika vilivyo, kwa sababu ni kati ya majukumu yetu, ili kuhakikisha kwamba ukarabati umefanywa na mambo haya yamewezwa kuingiza katika katiba, ili tukapate kuzipata huduma zilizo bora. Mheshimiwa Spika, nashukuru kwamba kufikia wakati huu tumeanza kupata pesa kidogo za CDF, lakini vile zinavyokuja, hata wakati mwingine inatubidi kamati ya CDF, mwenyekiti ama kiongozi walio wengi analazimika kutoa majibu ambayo hayaeleweki kwa sababu waziri wa fedha hajafika. Kwa hivyo, kwa hayo machache, Mheshimiwa Spika, ama mengi, nataka niseme asante sana kwa kunipa nafasi na kuhakikisha kwamba nimechangia katika hoja hii. Asante sana.
Asante sana ndugu Gonzi Rai. Let us have the Honorable Joseph Kangara, the Member of Parliament for Lari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to also contribute and support the memorandum that was brought to this House by His Excellency the President, where he made several proposals. And I want to support, first of all, the issue of the 2/3 gender principle. Mr. Speaker, we are all aware that the courts have already pronounced themselves on the issue of the 2/3 gender principle, having not been implemented by the House. And the court said that the House or the Parliament, for that matter, should be disbanded. And when the President now brings proposal where we have to bring this matter to a rest, and of course, the President himself has already pronounced himself again that he's a President who is going to obey court orders. I think it is a high time that we come up with a formula to be able to implement the principle, or to bring amendments to the Constitution and look for a different way of how we are going to ensure that we achieve this as per our Constitution. Mr. Speaker, the other one is on changes to the standing orders, so that we are able to bring cabinet secretaries to Parliament to answer questions. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that the current system where questions are being asked through committees, we have seen situations where questions have been asked, answers have been given, sometimes not satisfactory, and you realize that the members who have asked the questions do not have an opportunity either to have a supplementary question or a remedy in case the questions are not properly answered. Previously, when we had the cabinet secretaries coming from Parliament, people were able to engage, and members would indeed either be satisfied or the ministers or cabinet secretaries would be made to ensure that they give proper, correct answers to members, because some of the questions, or most of the questions that we ask on behalf of the electorate, the people who are put up in this house. And in that case, I would support that we have cabinet secretaries here so that we get satisfactory answers. And if supplementary questions are being, or we have issues we want to be added onto the answers, we are able to get that, Mr. Speaker. The other one is the issue of entrenching the various funds, NGCDF, GAF, in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, you are aware that again, severally, some people, I would call them busybodies, have been going to court every other time and claiming that CDF is unconstitutional. Mr. Speaker, we are aware that in this country, CDF is the first form of formula, for that matter, that was put to test on the issues of devolution. It is the only fund that wananchi have been able to fill. Today we have money going to the county government. If you go to our constituencies and look at the projects which have been implemented using CDF and the projects done sometime by the county governments, you realize that CDF is felt across board. We have money that is meant for bursaries to needy, bright students in our constituencies. And if anybody would want to kill CDF, that person wants to kill Kenyans, because indeed they depend on this for bursaries and for various projects that are being done within the constituencies. So I believe it would be important so that we cut off this jigsaw that has been going on every other time, that nobody has to go to court, because we have ensured that we have entrenched it properly in the Constitution, and now we can be able to serve our constituents and Kenyans, for that matter, without any disturbances. And the same thing with GAF. We have our women representatives who are running around counties, and of course, as politicians, there's a lot of expectation from the electorate. When people do not have funds to be able, when you go to people because they have issues every other time, and when you don't have this kind of funding, then it means that you're not able to serve your people properly. We would want it entrenched so that we are also able to serve our people well. We also have the oversight fund. The proposal to have oversight fund both for the National Assembly and for the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I believe that our senators and even ourselves, because if people just depend on their salaries to be able to move around, because we are not in charge of CDF, CDF is being managed by the committees. But for us to be able to oversight, because we are supposed to oversight government, senators are supposed to be oversighting the county governments, and without funding to be able to move around, and especially those who have some very large counties, then it means that their work is hampered. Mr. Speaker, I would support that these funds are entrenched in the Constitution so that we can be able to offer the services for whatever we are elected for to Kenyans. And Mr. Speaker, I support and thank you very much.
The Honorable Eric Kaugu, the MP for the great people of Madeira constituency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I rise to support the proposals brought forth by His Excellency the President to amend the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, to begin with, I want to support the anchoring of NGCDF into the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you go around all the constituencies, the projects that are most visible are projects done by NGCDF, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the reason is NGCDF, the funds available, most of it is used for development, and very little money is used for recurrent. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, the projects done by NGCDF in this country are the most visible, Mr. Speaker. I support the anchoring of NGCDF into the Constitution because we will avoid these issues of everyone waking up in the morning to go to court to delay us, to delay us. When we anchor NGCDF into Constitution, we will avoid these issues of everyone waking up in the morning, going to court to say that NGCDF is not constitutional, and we will avoid the delay as we are experiencing today, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the issue of cabinet secretaries coming on the floor to answer questions, I support it, Mr. Speaker, because a member may ask a question that I have an interest in. And if that question, and if the cabinet secretary goes to the committee, I will not have an opportunity to listen to the cabinet secretary answering a question that I may have an interest, even if I'm not the one who asked that question. So, Mr. Speaker, I am supporting that proposal, that cabinet secretaries be coming to the floor to answer questions to the full House, so that if it is a question that I am interested in, I will come and listen to the answers being given by the cabinet secretary. Mr. Speaker, number 3, the issue of creating an office for the leader of opposition. I am supporting it, Mr. Speaker, because the noise we are experiencing in this town, Mr. Speaker, if the leader of opposition has an office, he will go into that office, address media, make all the noise he wants to make from that office, as opposed to what we are experiencing, him making noise in town, disturbing the peace that is being experienced by Kenyans. So I am supporting that we create an office of the leader of opposition, so that him and the likes of Jeremiah Kioni, they can carry all sufurias they want and go beat those sufurias in that office. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, as I support those proposals, I want to add another proposals, because we are now speaking of amending the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, I want us to make another proposal, that we bring in 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. Because, Mr. Speaker, it cannot be that a person who is representing 120,000 voters is receiving the same resources as a person representing 5,000 voters. Mr. Speaker, because we are in the mood of amending the Constitution, let's do it overhaul rather than doing it in parts. The proposal to amend the Constitution to include 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, it must then come together with these proposals that we are brought by the President. Because there are people who are being treated unfairly. You are representing 200,000 people, you are elected by 100,000 voters, but the resources we are receiving through NGCDF, we are receiving those resources equally to a person elected by 5,000 voters, Mr. Speaker. That is not fair. That is not equality, Mr. Speaker. And because now we are in the mood of discussing how we are going to amend the Constitution, I am bringing forth that proposal that because we are in that mood, let us also include the issue of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, so that we don't then come again and try to amend the Constitution to include the issue of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. If we are amending the Constitution to include the office of the leader of opposition, if we are anchoring NGCDF, GAV, and the other funds into the Constitution, if we are amending the Constitution to allow the CSS to be coming on the floor to answer the questions, let us also include the issue of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling, so that we feel, Kenyans can feel they are all represented. There can never be that an MP who is representing 150 voters is being treated or is receiving the same resources as an MP who is representing 5,000 voters. So, Mr. Speaker, I support those proposals, and I also include a proposal that we bring in the issue of 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Do we have Honorable Harrison Kombe, the MP for Magarini, in the House? You may proceed.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipatia nafasi hii nikaweze kuchangia mswada huu unaoelekeza kubadilisha ama kurekebisha katiba. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwanza ningesema ubunifu wa ofisi ya mkuu wa upinzani katika katiba hiyo itatupunguzia masuala yale ya vurugu katika nchi mara kwa mara baada ya uchaguzi. Pia vile vile nichangie kwamba tunapofikiria hizi ofisi za kina mama zikaweze kupata mgao ili wakaweze kusaidia makundi yao, hapo pia tunaweza kuwa tunaendelea vizuri. Pia vile vile niongee swala la pesa za NGCDF. Msemaji mwenzangu ameongea vizuri, lakini pengine tu nimfahamishe ya kwamba wapigaji kura sio wale ambao wako katika eneo bunge. Wapigaji kura wanaweza kuwa 2,000, lakini eneo bunge liko na zaidi ya watu 300,000 au hata 500,000. Inategemea siku hiyo ya kupiga kura kama watu wameamka namna gani ndio waweze kujitokeza. Wanaweza wasijitokeze kwa wingi, na isichukuliwe kwamba wale watu 3,000 waliojitokeza kupiga kura kuwakilisha watu 500,000 kwamba ni lazima wapewe wale wale. Na wale wengine je? Hawa wengine pia ni Wakenya. Inastahili pia wakawe wanaweza kupata hela za kuweza kuwasaidia. Pia vile vile, Mheshimiwa Spika, ni muhimu kwamba tukaweze kupata mawaziri ndani ya bunge hapa, ili kwamba ukiwauliza ama ukiuliza swali linapokuwa halijajibiwa vizuri, kuna nafasi ya kuweza kuuliza maswali ya ziada. Na pia vile vile swali likiulizwa huwa halijalenga eneo bunge moja, huwa limelenga maeneo bunge kadhaa. Hapo wahusika wa maeneo bunge hayo mengine pia watapata nafasi ya kuweza kuuliza maswali ya ziada ikiwa ni hapa ndani. Hayo naona tutakuwa tuna mwelekeo mzuri. Hivyo basi naunga mkono urekebishaji wa katiba ili kwamba mambo haya mengine yote yakaweze kuzingatiwa. Kwa hayo, Mheshimiwa Spika, nasema asante kwa kunipatia nafasi hii.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kombe, for those wise and well-thought contributions. Do you have Honorable Gabriel Kagombe, the MP for Gatundu South? Is Gatundu South the constituency of the 4th president of the country?
I confirm, Mr. Speaker, it is the constituency of the former president and the chairman of the Azimio coalition.
You're a great member of parliament representing great people. Make your contributions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion on amendment of the Constitution to allow Kenyans access services that...
Honorable Kagombe, Honorable Ferdinand Wanyonyi, I really wanted to give you the chance to make your contributions, but the systems of parliament confirm you had contributed to this motion on Wednesday, 15th February. I don't know whether you could cross-check. And the systems indicate you made your contributions for the entire time allocated, in fact 10 minutes. You are so senior, I don't want to keep you around. Yes. Okay, thank you. Continue, Honorable Gabriel.
Honorable Speaker, I support the motion, especially on the 2/3 gender rule. Honorable Speaker, the spirit of the Constitution under Article 27, 6 and 8 is that a representation of all Kenyans is very imperative and is critical so that we achieve parity of, because you know, representation, and we keep saying, is that we say that there's nothing for us without us. So to have a parliament that does not have enough women is to mean that women are not being represented properly in their constituencies here in parliament. It is also the same when it would so happen that we have fewer men and fewer youth in the in parliament. So I support the 2/3 gender rule as proposed by the president. And this parliament, under Article 255, 257, and 256, have the right and the powers to amend the Constitution to allow such changes. Mr. Speaker, the importance of CDF cannot be overemphasized. When you walk around town, and you walk around the villages, you find projects that are done and funded by CDF, because the way CDF is constituted is that it is so representative. It touches on the lowest of people within constituencies, and they are able to put their contributions on what matters to them. Mr. Speaker, when we start fighting such a fund, then you deny the lowest people in society access to have word and to have their word put and listened to and implemented by the fund that comes from their taxpayer, from the taxes that they pay. Mr. Speaker, we know that probably other ministries should have done their work. For example, right now we just got the bursary fund. And probably the Ministry of Education should have identified a way of addressing issues of disparities between people who can pay and people who cannot pay. But as it is, and we have the law as is and the law as it ought to be. Right now, as it stands, in as much as we would want the ministry to do that, it is unable to do that, and it is unable to provide for children who are not going to school. But a member of parliament with his committee of CDF are able to go and find the lowest people in society and accord them bursary. As it stands, we have children who have not been able to access Form 1 because they have no school fees. We have children who are out of school because we've not been able to disburse their bursaries. And you know, the way the situation is on the ground is that we have disparities and we have a lot of troubles with the finances. So, Mr. Speaker, I support the implementation and anchoring of CDF and GAF and other affirmative action funds into the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, we have been treated to a lot of drama in the recent past. And when I see the opposition leader waking up in the morning and saying, now we are going to G, then I realize we do not have proper or properly anchored position of official opposition leader. And we say that exercising what we call power without responsibility is a prerogative of the harlot. And we must stop opposition from just disrupting economies of other people and economic activities of Kenyans. But how do you do that, Mr. Speaker? We need accountability. We need an opposition that is structured so that even as it opposes the government, and it is very important to put the government in check. But we cannot do that when the official opposition leader is somewhere sitting under a tree. Mr. Speaker, we need the official opposition leader and the actual opposition to be structured and to be within the law, so that when they're putting the government in check, then they exercise their authority and their power to oversight and to oversee government in very structured manner. That is the only way we are going to have and avoid these issues of addressing people on TV and by the streets and on the rooftops of cars. And we have a proper office that can address the executive and can be brought to this parliament, and we consider what has been recommended by official opposition. That is the only way to put government in check. And even as I sit on this side of government, I know that people left to their elements, they are capable and they have proximity and affinity to be selfish and to go to very selfish decisions. We need a proper working opposition. And that is why I support the president when he says that this parliament finds it fit to anchor the office of the official opposition leader and actually the official opposition which we're going to deal with here in parliament, and structure it in a bill and in an act that can be dealt with and that is capable of coming and standing here in parliament and being considered, so that the recommendations of the opposition are heard in parliament and considered within the law. And finally, Mr. Speaker,
before you leave that point, because the president has dispatched these thoughts to Parliament, so that as members we can enrich those thoughts and act if we are to act, not just to support. We still do not have a bill. Just while you are on your feet, and I'll add you time. I've had members contribute on that point on which you are giving very thoughtful, considerations. How do you have the leader of official opposition in a system like ours, which has no opposition? Because if we can help the president solve that, I've had everybody contributing agree we need that structured. Or you are suggesting we move from a presidential system, which we are now without opposition, to a parliamentary system where there is an opposition and for which, therefore, the leader can be the official opposition in the House, formally, giving his views on how the nation should be run in the structured way you suggest.
Mr. Speaker, I stand advised, but I know in this House we have the representative of the opposition, who is the leader of minority side in Parliament. But, Mr. Speaker, as it is, we know that, and I agree with our system of Parliament right now, it may be now beyond Parliament to change the system of governance as stipulated in the Constitution as it is, but when we sit and find the opposition leader, because, even the opposition, when it sits here, we know where it takes its mandate and its instructions from. And a lot of times, even the leader of minority is at pains explaining issues that are being given to him or instructions that are being given to him from outside this House, Mr. Speaker. But my suggestion would be that we form an office of that person who vied in the presidential election and became number 2, and give him an office where he can articulate his issues within the Constitution. And that does not call for the change of the system of governance that we have to a pure presidential one, or rather to a parliamentary one, but allows the person who became number 2 or the first runners-up in a presidential election, because he has a lot of support. And a lot of times, we find that this person had only just about 49% of the people. And these people, in as much as we say that in a democracy, the majority will have their say, their way, and the minority will have their say, that person who was number 2 has a lot of support. And the people who supported him also need to feel that they're represented in the government. So we shall sit in this House and formulate, and we have a committee that shall be in charge of this, and they shall formulate a way of having the official opposition leader outside Parliament that is able to bring bills in this Parliament, even if it's going to be appointed by the party that has the majority, the minority rather, and they appoint an official opposition leader, even if it is not the one who had vied for presidency, then it will be so, and that office shall be created, and they shall have recommendations that are capable to be listened and considered by this House. So, Mr. Speaker, the final issue I was on was the issue of cabinet secretaries. And we have had a lot of questions today. But a lot of times, even though under the standing orders, the person who had asked a question can go to the committee that will be listening to the cabinet secretary, it is not properly anchored, and we lack the benefit of enjoying and listening to answers that are given to the House by cabinet secretaries, because of them answering within committees and not in the House. Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of things that are going wrong because cabinet secretaries are not in touch with this House. Mr. Speaker, unlike the previous system of governance where cabinet secretaries used to sit in this House, they would even understand our issues. We have cabinet secretaries that have never been to the ground and have not interacted with the people on the ground, have not interacted with the Mwananchi, and they will need to hear the inputs of members of this House who are elected by people from the villages, so that they listen. Every time they come here, they listen to what Wananchis on the ground are saying, what Wanjiku and Atieno is saying on the ground. At times, we have a disparity, and some of these times when you wonder why a certain cabinet secretary is not working the way you would expect them to work, at times it's because they've not interacted with those people properly. And in our representation, we represent, and I keep saying we represent the least of our people in society. And we talk to them, and we listen to their issues. These issues cannot be addressed separately in a committee room somewhere. We need people to come and sit in this house when we are all full, at a full house, and we address the issues, and they listen to us, Mr. Speaker. So I support that we create, we amend the standing orders, and we allow cabinet secretaries to sit in this house and answer to questions when we are all here listening. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Gabriel Kagombe, you had risen on the standing orders to question why question number 20 of 2023, the question by Honorable Mark Mwenje, the MP for Embakasi West, was being directed to the Ministry in charge of Interior and National Administration. We have looked at Executive Order number 1 of 2023, which was issued on January 2023 on the Organization of Government of the Republic of Kenya, and confirmed that under that executive order, Betting Control and Licensing Board is under the Interior Department of that ministry. And so the question, insofar as the records we have are concerned, was properly directed. It is so ordered for now, and it will remain until we get a contrary position, like in terms of the reorganization of government. Thank you very much. Honorable Joyce, Dr. Joyce Atieno Bensouda, the Member of Parliament for the great people of Homa Bay County. Have you contributed to this motion?
I haven't, Mr. Speaker, and that's why I put my card to contribute on this motion.
Yeah, if so, take all your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this noble motion. For those who do not know me, once more, I'm Honorable Dr. Joyce Atieno Sogo Bensouda, woman representative Homa Bay County. So Homa Bay is here full house with 8 constituencies. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker, because I am your woman representative. And sitting beside Ms. Karachuonyo, MP, who is also one of the people whom I come with from the same county. I really appreciate when I hear, I want to be very brief today, because the issues to be supported in the motion are quite clear, quite precise, doesn't even require more debate, requires implementation. Where a nod is required, that is what I want to give. Where further consultation and intensive public participation is required, it must go to the people. And therefore, I want to appreciate the current government who has brought 4 items into this parliament to legislate over it. Top cream is the 2/3 gender rule. I remember, Mr. Speaker, during my campaign, one of the things that I promised the women, I'm going to be in that parliament and I'm going to push for implementation of 2/3 gender rule once and for all. I want to congratulate all the women who are in this parliament, the senior ones who are not with us here, but are in other levels of government. I want to appreciate those who have earned the position either in private, parastatal, and what have you. I want to inform and categorically go on record that 2/3 gender rule in this parliament doesn't require further debate, requires implementation. It is long overdue. I think we are moving towards taking side shows when we are still wondering whether it will be implemented or not. I want to urge all the sitting members of parliament from the male gender, this is something that we want to see you on the forefront. It is the women who are leading this country, right from the village, from the houses where we come from. When a woman is in front, everything is perfect. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to say that 2/3 gender rule becomes concluded. Let us not debate over this thing until even Jesus will come back and find us we are still pretending over the 2/3 gender rule. On to the second session, which is enshrining NGCDF and GAF. In Kenya, we are 47 women representatives. I'm very happy that we have shifted as a parliament. When we mention NGCDF, it's something, a sixth sense comes into their minds and all minds of the MPs who are representing constituencies, and they mention GAF not left behind. Bensouda is saying GAF is fast. We have seen the fruits of NGCDF, very conspicuous, very objective. In my constituency, I see the classrooms which can be models. I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Kaluma, for what you've done on classrooms in Homa Bay Town constituency. I see what Honorable Adipo Kwame does in the constituency where I cook ugali. There is no debate about NGDCF. If anything, we are calling for an increased percentage, not a reduction, not a debate over it. And we are saying that when we came to Parliament, in my maiden speech, I said categorically, I did not resign from my job to become a flower girl. I'm above being a flower girl in the Parliament. I'm here to represent. I cannot represent words and statements. I represent work. And work goes along with financial mobilization. And therefore, I echo the government for bringing that part of NGCDF and GAF enshrined in the Constitution. I remember very well when we had a sitting, when the current government visited Homa Bay. Dr. William Samoei Ruto said, when I stood up to rise on behalf of the 47 women reps, Bensouda, I have already signed that. Kazi ni kwenu huko bungeni. Himself, he said it. Is there anybody still doubting about GAF? What we get is good enough. But what we are saying, when considerations are being done for increment, we want women reps to represent effectively and efficiently. And so I support. When I come to the issue, there are 4 issues. We have the issue of the Senate. I want to argue and support from the perspective of a project planner. There is no monitoring and evaluation which can be done without resources, which can be done without mapping out the framework of the project to be monitored. I believe Senate is doing that. What I'm saying, can there be realistic budget demanded so that when the county governments, the national government is being put into check, then we are doing it from a realistic perspective. And of course, the reports must be timely submitted to ascertain whether we are implementing on the right direction as per the plan, whether we are achieving our goals or not, and what can be done. This requires movement. You cannot move on a motorcycle. It requires fuel. It requires the human resource. It requires the ICT. All this requires resources. So can we have something realistic for the Senate? I think the last one we are busy arguing, I just entered when my colleague was talking about whether we have the official position or not. To me, I want to say, Kenyans, we must be honest. Opposition has been in this house every time, and that means they are not opposing what is happening, but they are providing for checks so that effective balances are there. That is the direction we want to go. This does not stop those who are providing for checks and balances to give informative information outside to the common mwananchi. Not all of them are having televisions. There are issues which I think even for myself, I need to be properly updated on. The effects, you are a legislature speaker, take us on. There is no rush. We want this thing to be done in a private, in a more concurrent way. We are not rushing to have the opposition office now. After all, the checks are being questioned here. So what is the rush? That is my question. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Honorable Dr. Joyce Atieno Osogo Bensouda, you've not told the people of Kenya how Homa Bay County, which you represent, has dealt with the issue of affirmative action. And I've not heard you appreciate the fact that the people of Homa Bay have always complied with the requirement in terms of electing, the ladies. Can you take a minute or two to do so? And also confirm to us that case over which a judgment was being delivered in Homa Bay today. Because Homa Bay County, which you are honored to represent, is also the first county west of Kenya to elect a woman governor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't want this time for me to be told time out. That's why I was a bit fast. But thank you for giving me the honor, first and foremost, to appreciate Homa Bay County as a whole. I'm telling you, those are very bright people. They don't just elect. They elect people who can represent them well. You don't go campaigning for them to elect you. They make their critical analysis, and they give you the votes that you are worth of. I want to confirm to this House that the MPs who are elected in Homa Bay County are people with strong personality. They are competent. And in most cases, when the representation of even Kenya is being done, like now I'm just from Zambia. Why did I go to Zambia? Millie Odhiambo is presenting another conference which is championing from tomorrow. So that tells you how Homa Bay County MPs are competent. I want to appreciate that Homa Bay County elected the first woman governor in Nyanza region, whom since being in office for the last 6 months, we are seeing changes taking place. I've not been keen, Mr. Speaker, to watch, but you know, when I kneel down and I pray, I know everything is good in the sight of God. So whatever judgment is there, I even know through the Spirit. We are moving on. There is no turning back in terms of health facilities. Homa Bay is becoming clean. In fact, the last time I visited Kisumu and Homa Bay, I'm even seeing Homa Bay bypassing Kisumu. Just give it 2 months. I'm seeing Homa Bay bypassing Kisumu in terms of environmental cleanliness. The MPs who are there are effectively doing their work. Myself, as a woman rep, I'm very competent. Within the short period, I want to tell this House that the little that I was given, Mr. Speaker, you saw I launched what is called Mama County Back to School program. My predecessor was doing Mama County Says, but I'm doing Mama County Back to School program with 5 components: gender-based violence, sexual reproductive health, bursary allocation, academic mentorship, and health and sanitation. Quite bright and quite competent. I want to say that the MPs who are there, we work together. We unite and review. That is the way forward that we have championed this time. Even the CIDP were invited together so that we give input on how we want our constituencies to run and prioritize on what projects we are doing. I'm very proud of Homa Bay County, very proud of Excellency Gladys Atieno Nyasonawanga, very proud of all the 8 MPs, particularly the 5 female, Lillian Gogo, Ivo Bara, Millie Odhiambo, myself, including the governor. 5 female MPs in that county. I'm telling you, if other counties are not careful, Homa Bay County is going to be #1 among all the 47 counties. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Honorable Dr. Wilberforce Oundo, had you contributed to this motion?
Yes, Your Honor, I contributed to this motion. I'm just intrigued by the passion by the women rep from
Homa Bay.
From Homa Bay.
And
the passion is immense, and I think she could pass the passion to other counties so that we don't waste time talking about this funny thing called the third gender rule that we must put it in the law. Let her pass the passion to other places. Thank you.
And you know, Dr. Oundo, those ladies, those great gentle ladies she has mentioned, hold very top-level academic qualifications. She forgot to add Dr. Lillian Gogo, Dr. Ivo Bara, Senior Counsel Human Rights Advocate, Millie Odhiambo Mabona. So you see, what she says is true. These are very learned and competent people making very valuable contributions in national debate. On 14th August, in the year 1990, honorable members, this country lost a very great Kenyan in the name of Bishop Alexander Muge. I know some of you are aware, but many of you do not know that we have the granddaughter of Bishop Alexander Muge in the house, the Honorable Cynthia Muge. I want to recognize her and give her a chance to say something on this important motion if she had not spoken to it. And we thank you for being here to say those things we only used to hear from your grandfather. I remember when your father passed on, I was in Standard 8, preparing for exams. I had not met him in person, but my tears rolled down my cheeks very freely. So make your contributions if you have not made contributions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak to this particular motion on the floor of this House today. Like you said, my name is Cynthia Muge, and I come from Bishop Muge's place. Of course, he's a grandfather and a father to all of us in our county, and most so importantly, to me. And just like you, of course, I did not see him per se, but I have been able to go back to history, and we have been able to trace the kind of things that he did. And I want to note with great pleasure that it's good to do good things when you're living in this world, because I went to Kirinyaga the other day, I think it was on 4th, the honorable member of Kirinyaga County Woman Representative had a function, and there was this gentleman who used to work for Voice of Kenya, VOK, several years ago, and he couldn't hold his horses when he heard that my name was Muge, whether it was related to the late Bishop Muge or not. He really wanted to shake my hand and say a few things. Of course, he said that the last time he saw the bishop was when the bishop came to Kirinyaga, because there was something that was of national importance that needed to be said, and he was the guy who was on the mic, and he was the guy who would always do interviews for him. And he said, of course, he ended up in jail after the bishop had said whatever he had said on a very topical issue that was happening in the country at that time. And of course, I felt great not just to be associated, but also to be a neighbor at home with Bishop Muge. You see, Honorable Speaker, when I'm at home every time, I always tell people it's important to ensure that you have a beautiful and great, well-built name, because it might not be beneficial to you, but it will be beneficial to the generation that will come up after you. So I want to say that Bishop Muge is a great man, and we should all endeavor to ensure that we emulate what he used to do and what he stood for until his death. He was a great man in all spheres, and we hope that we'll have reincarnations of him in these generations that we have currently. He comes from Mosop constituency in Nandi County, and I come from Mosop constituency in Nandi County as well. So thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this motion that has been brought to the floor of the House by the Honorable Majority Leader. Honorable Speaker, we've had so many issues and talks in regards to the matters that have been raised in this motion. One of the issues, Honorable Speaker, that is outstanding is a not more than 2/3 gender principle. Honorable Speaker, like Honorable Bensouda has said it is not a matter that we should be speaking to. It is a matter that we should be asking about how far is the implementation of the said principle. Honorable Speaker, for so many years we have spoken, especially after the promulgation of the Constitution that recognized the deficiency in the female gender, to be specific, in leadership positions or decision-making tables, Honorable Speaker. With that, Honorable Speaker, it necessitated that we are able to do an affirmative action of giving an opportunity to women or whatever gender. You see, Honorable Speaker, also, every other time when we talk about gender issues, it's construed to mean women issues. Of course, it's never about women issues, Honorable Speaker. I was looking at the statistics today morning, of course, in light of the International Women's Day that's supposed to happen tomorrow on 8th, Honorable Speaker. And I looked at the figures, and I looked at KNBS and the statistics they had done. You look at the statistics of the number of female teachers in primary school versus the statistics of the number of male teachers in primary school. Honorable Speaker, the number of female teachers in primary schools are more than the number of male teachers in primary schools. In that case, Honorable Speaker, it should be used to be able to show people that gender is not a female's issue. It's not a women's issue. It is all gender, female and male. It can fall on either side. That said, Honorable Speaker, I want to appreciate the President for having gone out of his way. Of course, everyone thought that this was a political statements that were being made during the electioneering period, Honorable Speaker, where he promised that he will be able to look into this gender issue keenly and ensure that even his cabinet is gender sensitive. Of course, Honorable Speaker, we have not met all the promises or the things that we imagined that would be met, but there's still time for that, Honorable Speaker. And on this specific issue of in the House of the National Assembly, that is in the Legislative House, Honorable Speaker, the President has been intentional. He has been intentional to an extent that he has gone ahead and been able to put together a team that is able to now say how are we going to achieve this 2/3 gender rule practically, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, it takes willingness and political goodwill for you to be able to do that. The fact that he saw it wise to bring it to this House, and if you look at the wording of this particular motion, Honorable Speaker, it actually asks members to make general comments and observations in regards to the proposal that have been brought to the floor of the House, which is a rare opportunity, Honorable Speaker. Most of the time, things would be done, and then something that has been concluded and decided on is brought on the floor of the House, clear with recommendations, Honorable Speaker. But this particular motion on this very important issue, Honorable Speaker, has been brought to this House so that we are able to make comments and be able to put our thoughts together so that we can make it better and easily achievable. Honorable Speaker, what we want to call for and what we will ensure that we provide an enabling environment is for its implementation, Honorable Speaker, so that as we are geared towards settling on a particular formula for the two-thirds gender rule, we are also clear on the implementation framework and actually fast-tracking the implementation of the same. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I appreciate Homa Bay. Homa Bay, like Honorable Bensouda, the woman representative, says, has not only been speaking about it, it has actually been ensuring that it is actually doing something about it. And it is something that all of us, Honorable Speaker, should be doing. And I want to say that I'm not badly off now that I come from a county where at least out of the 6 single constituency members, we have 1 female. So it's a step in the right direction. It's been long since we had one from Nandi County, Honorable Speaker, but now we can see light at the end of the tunnel, Honorable Speaker. And I want to tell the people of Kenya that this is not something, this is not an endeavor in vain, Honorable Speaker. It is going to bear fruits, and it will be very beautiful fruits in this House and the decision-making tables in this country, Honorable Speaker. So I want to say that I support that particular proposal by the President, that we should look at a two-thirds gender rule, and we look at it objectively, Honorable Speaker, so that even the formulas that we come up with, the suggestions that we're able to put forward, Honorable Speaker, become implementable, and not just implementable, but also financially sensitive to the people of Kenya, so that we are not, again, giving them another financial burden in the name of curing the not more than two-thirds gender principle, Honorable Speaker. There is the other issue, Honorable Speaker, that has been mentioned that deals with GAF, NGCDF, and the other empowerment funds, Honorable Speaker, and even the Senate Oversight Fund, Honorable Speaker. These are very important part of the important things in this country, and I want to appreciate, Honorable Speaker, that the President of the Republic of Kenya is actually, or has actually been in this House as a legislator. He knows where the shoe pinches because he has worn it before, Honorable Speaker. And I want to say, just like my colleagues, that this is not something that should be up for discussion. It is something that we should actually be increasing the percentages of money that is allocated to these particular funds so that they are able to address the issues that are actually touching on them. For instance, Honorable Speaker, NGAF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, Honorable Speaker, is an affirmative action fund that is supposed to help undo the oppression that the people under that particular category, Honorable Speaker, have gone or have been subjected to over the years, Honorable Speaker. So the discussion we should be having, Honorable Speaker, like the Honorable members, my colleagues say, is about the percentages and the increment of the funds that are supposed to be actually put into the said fund, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when you hear discussions and talks outside, Honorable Speaker, everyone is talking about how beautiful and nice GAF is, how nice CDF has been, the great things that those particular funds have done in the people of Kenya's backgrounds and villages, Honorable Speaker. They talk about them so effortlessly, and they actually speak about them passionately, which actually tells us, Honorable Speaker, that we are actually chasing wind. It is already done, and it is already good. I mean, it is just ratification of the said, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, as a House, and on that particular suggestion, I want to say that I totally, and I agree in totality with the President's suggestions, and actually, I believe that the team that is going to sit down to be able to produce a final paper on the same is going to do a thorough job on the same, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on the issue of allowing the Cabinet Secretaries to appear before the floor of the House to answer the members of the questions, Honorable Speaker. Of course, Honorable Speaker, it gives me a 50-50 feeling, a 50% feeling of they should be given the opportunity to come to the floor of the House, and a 50% feeling of they shouldn't, Honorable Speaker, because, Honorable Speaker, if you allow the Cabinet Secretary to come to the floor of the House, you are actually making or reducing the number of activities that the committees are supposed to conduct, Honorable Speaker. The link between the National Assembly and the State Department, Honorable Speaker, should be that particular committee that has been given the opportunity to be able to oversight directly and then bring the resolutions to the floor of the House for ratification, Honorable Speaker. So, Honorable Speaker, I think there is more that needs to be done in looking at the bit.
Honorable Muge, do you need more time?
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
How many more minutes?
3 minutes, Honorable Speaker.
You have it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I haven't seen a gracious speaker before. Thank you for giving me those additional 3 minutes. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that on the issue of allowing the Cabinet Secretaries to come to the floor of the House, I think this is an issue that needs further thought, Honorable Speaker. We should be able to look at it, comparing it to the kind of system that we have in this country, and also comparing it with the responsibilities of a member of parliament who is supposed to legislate, who is supposed to oversight, and who is supposed to represent, Honorable Speaker, so that at no point are we making them clash, making the CS and the members of parliament clash, Honorable Speaker. We should provide an environment where everyone is able to do their duty, Honorable Speaker, without the other one interfering. So that is my thought on the same, Honorable Speaker, but as I said, I am no expert in the constitutional issues or in the legal issues. I'm actually a physical planner. So if you were to give me a road to draw and give me a house to be able to design and do all that for you, I would do it. But for this, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask for the indulgence of the people who actually can be able to interpret and be able to compare the statutory legislations in this country, so that we are able to keep our system of government, Honorable Speaker, and be able to deliver our services to the people that trusted us with the opportunity to be here. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, is in the office of opposition, the leader of opposition. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that that issue, just like allowing the CSS to be on the floor of the House, is a matter that also needs a lot of consultations, wide consultations, so that we are able to do something that will not be used or that will not taint our names in the future, Honorable Speaker. The provision of an official opposition leader position, Honorable Speaker, I don't think it needs to be put in black and white, because if you are an opposition leader, you don't need to have a green card from anyone, Honorable Speaker, for you to do exactly that. You can as well just execute your responsibilities as an official opposition leader. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the majority leader for giving this House an opportunity to be able to consider the suggestions that were made or brought to this House by the Honorable Speaker, and be able to make general comments on the same. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity, and I want to say that that is my submission.
Thank you, Honorable Cynthia Muge, for those submissions, contributions. The MP for Mumias East, the Honorable Peter Salasi, had you contributed to this motion? You do very well outside. We want to hear you speak to Kenyans.
Okay, thank you so much, Speaker. Maybe my contribution on the issue of the President allowing the ministers, the cabinet secretaries to come in the House. I think, yes, it's a good idea, but to me, from where I sit, is that it's going to be only opportunity for the majority leader and for those who call themselves to be veterans. So we think the best thing to do is for the President to give the committees in our various committees powers to summon the CSS and permanent secretaries. And then now we can table, maybe that one can do better. But for allowing the cabinet secretaries to come in the House, it's going just to be a show of the majority leader and minority leader. So for that case, I don't support that thing. I only support that we as in the various committees to be allowed to summon the CSS and come and respond, and so that we can bring the report in the House. On the issues of having the opposition leader, that issue, because it was in the BBI, and we are still supporting that issue 100%, and I also to compliment about it. About the issue of the CDF, CDF has been of great importance because we don't have the issues of wage bill in the CDF. Those are people who are working there, they are only relying on allowances. So you find like the work of the CDF has been able to be felt in the mashinani than than counties. So for the CDF to be enshrined in the Constitution and the GAF, I think is the best. But now with the issue of the GAF, I think there should be some bit of awareness to the Kenyans so that people can know what are the responsibility of a woman rep. Because you find like some of them, people doesn't know what are the work of the, so even if when the woman rep decides to eat to misuse the funds, Kenyans cannot be able to, the people in the mashinani cannot be able to relate well. So I think that is what I can commend. Speaker, I think I have done so well today because I'm also performing so well there out, and I'm also doing so well here as you have heard me. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Peter Salasia, the great member of Parliament for Mumias East. Does the Honorable David Kiplagat want to contribute to this, the Member of Parliament for Soy?
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this chance to contribute to the proposal from the President on amendment of the various articles of our Constitution, and also amendment of our standing orders to include the PSS being allowed to come to this House so that they can be able to answer to various questions. My view are the following. On the issue of CSS, being allowed to come to this House so that they can personally answer questions from members, I think it's a good thing. First of all, it will energize the House. In fact, I think the attendance will be felt because everyone will want their questions to be answered by the person who is supposed to answer the question. The current scenario whereby the chairman of the committee takes the question to the CS, then that answer is transmitted through the chair to this House. We don't know, something can happen in between, and you will also get the members of the committee. For those members who are just members, the interaction with the CS is very minimal. So it is only the chair who gets to interact with the CS. So I believe for accountability purposes and for transparency to be felt, and for the members to be felt, it is important that we allow the CSS to come to this House. By just amending the standing orders, I don't think we need to look at the Constitution for that to happen. And in fact, I believe even without amendment of the standing orders, we can as well convert this House to the committee of the whole House, and the CS attends, and you will be able to answer questions. So that one is a bit easier. On the issue of representation of women in Parliament, I think I have a different view. And those are my personal thoughts. They are not the thoughts of the party where I belong. I believe in letting Kenyans, in letting the voters choose their own leaders without being biased on the issue of gender or any other discrimination for that fact. And we know very well that currently the issue of wage bill is very huge. So adding more members to this House to justify the gender issue, which is constitutionally, it has been allowed, but I know even if it has been allowed constitutionally that we need to have a 2/3 representation, it is important that we look at the issue of representation. People are represented by their elected representatives, and I don't believe adding more women to balance that will bring any value to this House. And I don't think even in terms of sharing on those women who will be able to come to this House to balance the gender issue, whether there will be equity or whether the Wanjiku down there will be proposed to come to this House. I know it is only the women who are within Nairobi or who knows their way within Nairobi and the powers that be that are going to be that are going to be nominated to come to this house. So for that one, I have a different view, and I hold the view that let the people decide their leaders. And with that, I know the party leader and the president has another view, but for my case, as the representative for the people of Soy, we hold the view that for that one, let everybody go and campaign, get elected, whether you are a man, whether you are a woman, you have equal opportunity to be elected by the people. On
Honorable David Kiplagat,
yeah.
You are a very informed leader, so let me pick your view on some matters. You give your views on this matter. You know the much talked about decision by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has amended Article 27, Sub-Article 4, to say that gender there is not just about male or female, but sexual orientation. And so you have intersex, you have transgender, you have gay, you have lesbians, you have pansexual, all that gender. How would you advise we rationalize the numbers in the light of what the President is proposing we do?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think now we are chattering in the uncharted waters. Our courts should not legislate while they are interpreting the law. I believe on the issue of the LGBT, the decision by the majority of the judges in the Supreme Court was in bad light. It didn't respect our religion. It didn't respect our Africanness. It didn't respect our culture. And for that, in totality, I want to state that we oppose that ruling, and it is a ruling that we need a judicial review over it, because I believe the Constitution is passed by this House, either through a referenda, or for those articles that don't require a referenda, it is passed by the Parliament when it garners 2/3 of all the members of this House. So I believe that is an issue we really need to look at it. And for that case, I think this House should come with an amendment to make it as clear as daylight that we don't support the issue of sexual orientation or the issue of LGBT in our laws. So for that one, I think it is an issue we need to revisit, and we need to come out clearly. And in fact, over the weekend, when we were addressing church congregation, we made it clear, as Parliament, we shall stand, we shall look at all options, and we can even go to the extent of bringing impeachment motion against those churches that decided that we can have association of LGBT in Kenya. It is an add-off, and if it is being brought in Kenya because we are poor and some people feel that they need to bring us money, I think the only thing you need in life is, one, you need to breathe, and secondly, you need to eat. And I believe for those two items, we are capable. We don't need any aid from abroad. So they can go with their aid, they can go with their culture, and they can go with their lesbianism and gayism to wherever it came from. So we don't need them, and we shall take stand action on that. On the issue of CDF, I think this CDF, we have stated our views very clearly. And I know before we went on recess, there is a committee that was put in place, which is a joint committee between National Assembly and the Senate. Maybe the Chepkonga-led committee should be able to tell us what they are doing, because we believe that is an amendment we need to pass like yesterday. And I need to urge this House, let us not join all the amendments together, because some of these amendments, some of them are a bit emotive, and for the CDF, which we are all in agreement, we need to pass it like yesterday, and we don't need to add it to these other amendments of representation, amendments or bringing the issue of the leader of opposition. As I finish, maybe, Chair, you can give me just 1 minute to wind up on the issue of leader of opposition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On the issue of leader of opposition, I think we need to bring sanity to that office. You know, currently, the opposition leaders are running around the streets, forcing the government through demonstration, disrupting businesses, disrupting unity within our streets, disrupting other businesses within this country. And I believe the only way we can do, let us give them room to be able to air their views, and the best way for them to be able to air their views is to create the leader of opposition. I don't know whether it will be in this house, because I was reading the constitution and it might require a referenda, so I believe it should not be in this house, but we should create an office somewhere where he can be able to officially complain by writing to the relevant executive offices. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable David Kiplagat. I will let your last statements go because you've responded very well and in a very informative way to the initial question. But you see, Honorable David Kiplagat, demonstration is a constitutional right. It cannot be disruptive. The right to protest, the right to demonstrate. So the leader of official opposition can sit here and while outside also demonstrate. And there is very little we can do about it. The Honorable Peter Masara, the MP for Suna West, had you contributed to this? If he has not, then you are recognized. Take your time and make your contributions to the memo by the President to Parliament.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice to what other members have really contributed into. One, we have very burning issues, the issue of constitution. Mr. Speaker, let it be known to each and every member here that the Constitution of Kenya is the property of the people of Kenya. It's not the property of this National Assembly. The people of Kenya, in their wisdom, spoke well and overwhelmingly supported the 2010 Constitution to an extent that there are things they rejected and there are things they accepted. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, based on the memorandum of Dr. William Ruto to this National Assembly, I want to say that the people decided that the kind of government they wanted. They didn't want cabinet ministers to come to the National Assembly. That's why they decided that cabinet minister, the CSS, to be technocrats and people outside this building. Therefore, when somebody wants to bring these changes, let us go back to the people and ask them. It is the right time now because the Constitution has been there for now over 12 years. So when the executive, the current people sitting in the executive feels that the CSS are supposed to come here, my suggestion, and I believe is the suggestion and the minds of many Kenyans, let's go to the referendum and ask the people what they want. Because we cannot be thinking on their behalf and we try to amend the Constitution here in this National Assembly as it is now. People are conflicted. People are visiting State House, we don't know what they are doing there, and we don't know what they are being told. So when you bring such a thing in that important decision in this house, some people may decide when their stomach is speaking for them. Therefore, we may not end up getting the right decision. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of the Supreme Court of Kenya, I've been thinking and I've been doing research. The drafters of the Constitution, there was a miss should the Supreme Court pronounce themselves in a manner that is not prescribed in the Constitution? What is the remedy? Mr. Speaker, I know you are a lawyer, and you are one of the few brains we have in this country. But there was no express article or section where the Supreme Court could be corrected. But I've read some articles from different countries that since the Constitution belongs to the people and the Supreme Court acts on behalf of the people of Kenya, they have delegated powers. Therefore, this is the right time for the majority of Kenyans or leaders to go back to the people and tell them that the Supreme Court we have currently, there's a problem. And I want to thank God that during my lifetime in this parliament, when the petition of the 2022 general election was taken to Supreme Court, they talked of hot hair. It is true, Supreme Court is hot hair. How can a Christian, a woman, Mr. Speaker, who is married, who has children, can tell us that we give men to associate in a way that they can marry themselves? When you register the association, what will they be discussing? How to a man get pregnant or what? Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that Kenyans should come out. And actually, I'll start collecting signatures next week to the effect that we want this Supreme Court to be reconstituted.
Did I hear somebody on a point of order?
Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to know from the honorable member, how dare he call the Chief Justice of this country as a mere woman? He should have respect for women. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. He should apologize.
Did you call any judge of the country a mere woman?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Honorable Adagal, I know her. She's very protective of women affairs. But I'm a son of a woman. I'm married to a woman. I'm a father to a girl. I respect women. But whether you are a president or you are a speaker, you remain a man or a woman. But the title I mentioned is that the judges of Supreme Court. Mr. Speaker, we must call a spade a spade. The president of the Supreme Court.
The point raised, Honorable Masara, is what I'm asking. Did you refer to any judge, whether in the Supreme Court or any of the superior courts, as a mere woman?
No, I didn't do that. What I was trying to explain,
you didn't do that.
What I wanted to explain is that somebody who is able to give birth, in whichever dictionary, that person is a woman.
So you didn't refer to
a mere, I talked of a woman.
You didn't refer to any judge of our country as a mere woman?
No, I did not. And if our secretariat later on can replay what I was saying, I was trying to explain my point. Mr. Speaker.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to collect, and this one nobody should challenge this. From both sides of the political divide, we need to agree that our Supreme Court erred. What is the remedy? Because whatever decision they pronounce themselves will be used as in other rulings. They will refer to the ruling of the Supreme Court, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, we need to look for a remedy before these things goes out of hand. We are Christians.
Just a minute, Honorable Masara. The MP for Gatundu South, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, the last time I checked, we were discussing the motion on general debate on the proposal for Parliament to consider amending the Constitution and the standing orders. And I'm wondering whether the honorable member is in order to continue discussing issues that do not pertain to this debate. And if we were to debate the issue on LGBTQ and the ruling of the Supreme Court, then we propose and we bring a motion to this House so that we discuss that matter and dispense of it accordingly, so that we all get the time to discuss it. It is unfair for him, it is out of order for him to discuss that issue while we have restrained ourselves and constrained ourselves to the topic of debate this afternoon, and the motion that is before the House. So the motion that is discussing is not properly laid before this House, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Peter Masara, were you discussing the matter of women in the context of affirmative action, or in the context of
Mr. Speaker,
what you feel about the Supreme Court determination?
The memorandum has several issues. One is the issue of gender, the issue of CDF, the issue of CS appearing in this House. But Mr. Speaker, when I was given chance, what I was discussing currently is in the public domain. I doubt if there's standing order which is barring me from mentioning something even which every church, Mr. Speaker, is talking about. I'm a Christian, and I cannot sit down and talk about gender issue without mentioning. You know, we want to mainstream the issue of gender. But when they are messing up, we should not even increase them in that way, Mr. Speaker. The best way is we need to support, empower women so that they can also be elected like Adagala here, who has not been, Honorable Adagala, who has not been nominated. This is he's serving her second term. If women are empowered, many of them will be elected. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of CDF, Mr. Speaker, kindly, Mr. Speaker, let us expedite the issue of...
Honorable Masara, just a minute. I'll add you time, don't worry. Our standing order number 87 forbade discussing the conduct of a judge and those other state officers set therein, unless there is a substantive motion therefore. And so to the extent that you did, if that will be confirmed by